Here at home, the murder of a jogger in Queens has left a community on edge as the hunt for her killer continues.
At around 10:30 at night, police officers were moving slowly through the thick reeds along the running trail in Spring Creek Park in Brooklyn. Then, suddenly, they heard a man scream. When the officers rushed closer, they saw a father standing over his daughter's body. Karina Vetrano, a 30-year-old woman, was lying face down on the ground. Her athletic top and shorts had been pulled down. There were bruises on her face. Her teeth were broken, and her legs were covered in scratches. The officers tried to pull the father away from her body, but he wouldn't let go. He just kept repeating the same words over and over. "I have to take my daughter home." Just a few hours earlier, Karina had simply gone out for a run. She was an experienced runner and used to jog along that trail all the time with her father. But that day, he stayed home because of a back injury. Right before she left the house, she told him everything would be fine. 2 hours passed, and she never came back. When detectives began examining the crime scene, one thing became painfully clear. Karina had fought until the very end. At one point, she even bit her attacker so hard that she broke her own teeth. Investigators later found DNA under her fingernails, but when they ran it through the national database, it didn't match anyone, which meant only one thing. Somewhere nearby, there was a man who had brutally attacked a woman in the middle of the day and then disappeared without a trace. But what investigators discovered later turned out to be far more horrifying than just a murder. DNA analysis revealed a terrifying secret. And when police finally found the killer, some of the officers said it was so disturbing that, it honestly gave them chills. A few of them even needed psychological help afterward. So to really understand how this all happened, we have to go back to the very beginning. Alright friends, let me pause for just a minute. I'm really curious where my audience is watching from. So if you don't mind, tell me what city you're in and what time it is where you are right now. Thanks for taking a moment to do that. Drop it in the comments, and now let's keep going. Karina Vetrano, a 30-year-old runner, was the kind of person who always pushed herself, always trying to go a little farther and a little faster. That day didn't seem any different from the others. At around 5 in the afternoon, she stepped out of her house to go for a run near Spring Creek, a quiet area that's part of East New York in Brooklyn. Spring Creek is a natural preserve that covers about 2 square miles. It's full of overgrown patches, tall weeds, and thick brush. The place sits just a few blocks from the home where Karina lived with her family. Most of the time, she ran there with her father, Phil, a retired firefighter. But that day, he stayed home because of a back injury. Phil felt uneasy about her going there alone. The area was pretty isolated, and he told her he didn't think it was a good idea for her to run there by herself.
"Don't worry, I'll be fine," she told him.
Just a few minutes before heading out for her run, Karina took a quick selfie. In the background of the photo, you can actually see her mum, Kathy, walking past behind her. Then Karina left the house. Phil later said that about 45 minutes after she walked out the door, he suddenly had this uneasy feeling, like something just wasn't right. By then, almost 2 hours had passed. Karina still hadn't come home. Phil tried calling her over and over again, but she never answered. So he reached out to a childhood friend of his who was working with the New York City Police Department at the time. A patrol car was sent to the area to look for her. When officers couldn't find Karina, the search quickly expanded. Units from the 106th Precinct joined in, moving through thick reeds that were as tall as 10 feet. And even as night fell, the search continued. When we were going along the trail and checking the area, there was this really strong sense of unease, said NYPD Detective Barry Brown. At one point, someone even said out loud, this doesn't feel right. Phil was also helping police during the search, using the geolocation signals from Karina's phone. Investigators eventually moved toward a marshy area about 15 feet off the running trail. Local residents had raised concerns about that area before, The tall weeds there had long been considered a safety problem for the community. At around 10:30 that night, officers suddenly heard a man screaming and immediately ran in that direction. It was Phil. He had found his daughter's body lying face down on the ground. Officers had to physically pull him away because he just couldn't let her go. He kept repeating that he needed to take her home. Detectives, including Barry Brown and Lieutenant John Russo, determined that Karina had bruises on her face and multiple injuries. Her teeth were broken, and there were abrasions on her legs. Her athletic top and shorts had been pulled down. Police said there was evidence pointing to sexual assault. Karina had fought her attacker so fiercely that she bit him with such force that she broke her own teeth. Investigators also noticed that one of her hands was tightly gripping grass, which suggested she may have been dragged across the ground. The chief of detectives, Boyce, later said it was obvious that she fought until the very end. The office of the medical examiner later performed an autopsy and determined that her death was a homicide caused by strangulation. While the killer was choking her, he pressed his hand against her neck so hard that police could actually see the imprint of his hand. Phil later said he felt like it was somehow meant to be him who found her. She led me to her. She needed her dad to be the one who found her. There's no doubt about that, he said.
It's one of the most intense and difficult crime scene searches in recent years. The view from Chopper 2 shows the demanding scope of the task.
We have a very active crime scene in a very remote area. So we're searching this as best we can in a very tough condition. The grass is very high. We're using machetes to search for additional evidence wherever we go.
Thursday, dozens of detectives fanned across Howard Beach, interviewing landscapers and home improvement workers.
They're just asking us what time we shut up and were you working Tuesday. They want this guy, whoever he is. I hope they get him.
Tonight, teams of search crews continue to tackle the dense weeds 300 feet at a time. First, hacking away by hand with machetes. They don't want to damage any possible clues as they clear the area.
We're clearing a very vast area in the back adjacent to the crime scene, and we're conducting a search for evidence.
The mother and father are just visibly shaken. They want closure. They want justice. They want to be able to bury their daughter with dignity.
We all jog and we all walk out here and enjoy, the serenity. And now I'm afraid to go out.
At his latest briefing, the chief of detectives calling this case, quote, a severe community threat and taking the following steps. A 6-month review of all Parks Police activity in the area, collecting information from the police department's sex offender monitoring unit, and continuing with their cell phone tower investigation. But so far, just the possibility that the killer may not have been someone Karina Vetrano knew, well, it certainly leaves residents on edge.
My concerns is that, if it's somebody that lives in the area, that he might do it again.
Karina's father described Karina Vetrano as cheerful, driven, and successful, the kind of daughter every parent dreams about. Even though she was only 4 feet 11 inches tall, her personality was incredibly strong. She was very intelligent and had earned a master's degree from St. John's University. While still living with her parents, she worked as a speech therapist in Manhattan, helping children with disabilities. According to her friend Erica, Karina was like a spark, a tiny firework of energy, with this contagious laugh that, could fill an entire room. Besides her job as a speech therapist, she also worked part-time as a promoter at a club in Astoria, where she invited guests and earned a percentage from the revenue generated by VIP services. Friends also told investigators about a man named Paul, an employee at the nightclub where Karina worked. They said he had made unwanted advances toward her and would become aggressive when she rejected him. At one point, they believed he might even have been stalking her. However, police later ruled him out as a suspect after confirming that he was at work at the time of the murder. And the more investigators looked into the case, the more it started to seem like this might have been a random killing carried out by a stranger.
We are still in the process of crime scene collecting evidence right now. We will be out there for several days. That is a remote area. We have crime scenes set up there, and we plan to chop down just about every weed in that location until we satisfied that we got all the evidence. Now, we have a lot of forensic evidence acquired so far, but we're not getting a lot of Crime Stopper tips. We have 3, and they're all pretty generic. So we have since raised the reward up for $10,000 for any information. That is a very strong community. I'll be out there as soon as I leave here. We've got nothing but support from everybody out there. We hope to have more information. Now, this is a remote area. Young lady was running, still daylight, so hoping somebody saw something going into the park. Thus far, we don't have a lot of leads on this right now, but we're still collecting evidence. The evidence that we've collected thus far is in the Office of Chief Medical Examiner. We're hoping to get it up on a DNA profile in the next couple of days. We have them, I tell you, we have them often in this city. No one is this subject of murder. They're usually late at night. If we have them on the street, rape one, where stranger rapes are down in this city. Nonetheless, we still get them. This type of incident where you have a jogger in a park, in a recreational center, in daylight hours is extraordinarily unusual.
About 400 people came to Karina Vetrano's funeral. Among them were several members of the New York City Fire Department. She was full of life, Phil said during his farewell speech. She lived every single day like it was her last, putting as much life as she could into every minute. In just 30 short years, she accomplished more than some people do in an entire lifetime. And we weren't just father and daughter, we were like one and the same.
She was a beautiful girl, young. I didn't know her at all, but it's sad.
I'm going to address the coward.
Whoever killed her daughter, Karina. For the first time since the brutal murder, the Vetranos spoke with reporters outside of their home.
You know that my daughter was a force to be reckoned with. And I guarantee you that you will be reckoning with that force, not only for the rest of your pathetic life, but for the rest of eternity as you burn in hell. My daughter was a big believer of karma. And as you could see, she's magical. The whole world knows she's magical. And I guarantee you, you will pay forever.
Justice will be served, okay? That's why we have the PD. That's why we have God. Justice will be served.
Investigators were not able to recover usable DNA from the sexual assault evidence kit. However, they did manage to build a DNA profile using material found under Karina's fingernails, as well as on her cell phone, which was discovered just a few feet from her body. Her murder deeply shook the tight-knit community, and many people were living in fear, trying to understand what had happened. Thousands of people also donated money to a reward fund for information that could help identify the killer. Police contributed $25,000, the mayor's office added another $10,000, and the remaining funds were raised through GoFundMe.
They're tracking everything down, but what we need for someone to say, hello, I know the guy. That's what we're looking for. If I wake up and there's nothing for me to do, that's when the bottom's going to drop out. So I have to stay involved every day in every way. Today it's this. This is keeping me alive today.
A tractor with an industrial mower was brought to the crime scene, along with dozens of police officers from different units. Because the land where Karina's body was found was under federal ownership, the New York City Police Department asked the FBI for assistance. Federal agents supported the investigation by providing additional resources. They even used drones to survey the area from above. Police also said they checked a homeless encampment located more than 1 mile from the crime scene, but investigators eventually concluded it was likely not connected to the murder. They also questioned registered sex offenders who lived nearby, along with several people known to spend time living inside the park itself. To increase the resources dedicated to the investigation, the NYPD created a special task force. It included 2 detectives from each of the 8 units of Queens South. At the same time, officials had to address safety concerns inside the park. A federal officer explained that the large area where Karina was killed was only monitored around the perimeter, and even those checks were irregular throughout the day. The same officers were responsible for patrolling parts of Gateway National Park in Brooklyn and Queens, which also includes Spring Creek. This is a serious challenge for us. We've talked about it with the community before, and honestly, it's no secret, said the commander of the US Park Police District. Investigators said that with no eyewitnesses, their most important lead was the DNA profile. That profile had already been checked, but at that moment it still hadn't produced a match in the national database. The CODIS database that we use for DNA was only created in 1998. So this person could have been imprisoned before that, explained Chief of Detectives Boyce. But it could also be someone younger, someone who's never been imprisoned at all. In a case like this, it was crucial to check whether anything similar had happened before. Early in the investigation, detectives in New York said they had been contacted by the Massachusetts State Police to see if there might be a connection between Karina's murder and the killing of Vanessa Marcotte. A 27-year-old Google account manager who was found dead in Princeton on August 7th. At the time, Vanessa lived in New York City, but she had traveled to Princeton to visit her mother. On August 7th, she went out for a run and never came back home. Later, her body was discovered in a wooded area about half a mile from her mother's house. Authorities in New York said they could not confirm any connection between the two cases. Still, they emphasized that investigators would continue checking every possible lead. Chief of Detectives Boyce said investigators still believed Karina's murder was random. Their main theory hadn't changed. They believed the suspect escaped through the dense brush surrounding the crime scene and eventually made his way toward Belt Parkway. Police examined every possible escape route, but surveillance cameras did not capture any clear image of a suspect. Every house near the park was checked, and residents were interviewed. Investigators even used the phrase, "a needle in a haystack," and honestly, that's exactly what the search felt like. As the high-profile case continued to draw more public attention, a Verizon employee who had been working in Spring Creek Park on the day Karina was killed contacted the police. He told detectives that he had seen a man who seemed suspicious. The man was wearing a wool cap and was in the area around the same time investigators believed the attack had happened. Based on that description, a composite sketch was created and released to the public on August 31st.
At a press conference, Chief Boyce says one particular thing stands out.
And if you'll notice the dark wool hat, remember the day was August 2nd. A little unusual he's wearing a wool hat in the area there.
And now a laser-sharp focus on this bike path where, unfortunately, there are no cameras. And finding this man, who police say is black, 5'10", between 35 and 45 years old, with a medium build.
We have to speak to this person, so that's the only reason we're putting it out.
After the composite sketch was released, a former NYPD supervisor contacted Robert Boyce. At the time, he was working as the head of security at a residential building in Brooklyn, and he said that one of the residents looked a lot like the man in the sketch. Police went to the apartment. The man, whose name was Kevin, refused to open the door at first. Officers stayed outside the building until he eventually came out. Kevin admitted that, yeah, there was some resemblance to the sketch, so he was taken to the station for questioning. Once there, he refused to provide a DNA sample. Detective Barry Brown later said that decision immediately caught everyone's attention in the room. Police eventually obtained his DNA using a discarded water bottle he had thrown away. But when the results came back, the analysis showed that Kevin's DNA did not match the profile connected to the crime scene. After that lead was ruled out, investigators were basically back at square one. Hoping to generate new information, Crime Watch Daily released surveillance footage showing Karina just a few hours before her murder. The video was recorded during what police described as her usual running route. Her family and investigators were both hoping it might reveal some kind of clue. Authorities said it was the last known image of Karina. Karina's loved ones also came together to retrace some of the last routes she was known to have taken. When the DNA still didn't match anyone in the database, Phil urged investigators to use a method called familial searching, basically checking whether any relatives of the possible killer might already be in the database. "You could find the killer," he said. "You might be able to trace a direct connection, and that would narrow the search down a lot." At the time, that kind of testing method was being used in 9 states, but not in New York. So Phil started a petition, hoping to change that.
Familial DNA searching goes deeper, using special software to look for a similar, not exact match, indicating the suspect could be related to someone in the system.
There's untold amount of cold cases that'll be solved by this. But
the ACLU is pushing back, saying that such policy could lead to, quote, miscarriages of justice.
Well, I think they're just ignorant of the facts that we are just targeting criminals.
6 months after she was found dead, police now have a person of interest in the case of murdered jogger Karina Vetrano.
One man was taken into custody. The next day, he was officially arrested, and he said, "Please tell my mom I'm sorry. Could I speak with someone from the victim's family? I'm sorry for what I did." The events that led to that moment actually began about a month earlier, after weeks and months had passed without any major breakthroughs in the investigation. In January 2017, Lieutenant John Russo took another look at the case. He was one of the officers who had been at the scene when Karina was found, and he also lived in Howard Beach. While reviewing the case files, Russo suddenly remembered an incident from May 2016, just a few months before Karina's murder. And, he started to wonder if it might actually be connected to the investigation. On the other side of the street, near the house next door, I saw someone walking away from me. The person was wearing a tracksuit with long sleeves and a hood pulled over their head, even though it was about 80 degrees outside. And I remember thinking, like, that's strange. Russo said the man seemed to be looking over the houses nearby, and that made him call the police. But by the time officers arrived, the person was already gone. The very next day, neighbors reported similar suspicious behavior. They said a man wearing a black and white tracksuit had walked onto several private properties. Later, Russo ran into the same man again and asked for his name. His name was Chanel Lewis. At the time, Russo figured that was probably the end of it, and that their paths would never cross again. But in January, the memory came back to him. He had this strong feeling about it, like something just didn't sit right. So he started digging deeper into Chanel Lewis. He discovered that Lewis didn't have a criminal record, but he had received several summonses connected to the Brooklyn side of Spring Creek Park, across from the section of the preserve located in Queens. After that, Chief Boyce received a call from Russo. There was something in Lieutenant Russo's voice that made me think, this might actually be the one, Boyce said. So we jumped on it right away. When investigators began speaking with Chanel Lewis, he told officers he knew the area very well. According to him, he was mostly a loner with very few friends, and he often walked along the trails to listen to music and, clear his head. While cooperating with detectives, he voluntarily provided a DNA sample. Officers also visited his former high school and discovered that his past appeared to be troubled and complicated. According to news reports, while he was still in school, he once told a teacher's aide that he wanted to stab his female classmates. "I want to stab all the girls." According to reports, he said that on May 17, 2011, when he was 15 years old. Sources also said that at one point he allegedly asked, "What would happen if I brought a knife to school?" Sources said the school notified the police, and he was taken into custody as a person with emotional disturbances. He was transported to Kings County Hospital Center for evaluation and later released. The following month, according to reports, school staff contacted law enforcement again after he allegedly cursed at a female student and threatened her and her family. He was once again taken to the hospital and later released. One tabloid article also claimed that he had been diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, but that information appears never to have been independently confirmed. During research into the case, that claim only appeared in an article from the New York Post. In September 2011, he was reportedly transferred to a private school for students with emotional and behavioral difficulties. Former classmates later said he was known as a loner and was often bullied at school. "They used to beat him all the time," one student said. "Even girls would pick on him and hit him. He didn't have any friends." Another former student said that sometimes he tried to fight back, but that didn't happen very often. One classmate who rode the school bus with him said many people made fun of him because of the way he dressed and the way he looked. At the same time, several former students said they never knew him as an aggressive or confrontational person. He always walked around school with his hood pulled over his head, one of them said. The executive director of Martin de Porres Schools later said that Chanel Lewis graduated in August 2015, and during his time there were no reports that he had threatened anyone. While he was at the school, there were no disciplinary records connected to him, and there were no other reports of threatening statements directed at other students. The director said in a statement, Chanel's father stood up for his son, but at the same time he pointed investigators to one important detail. He told detectives that his son couldn't have committed the crime because the day after the murder he had taken him to the hospital. Chanel was treated there for a hand injury. He said he had gotten it during a fight. After checking local hospitals, detectives managed to find the doctor who had treated him. According to Detective Barry Brown, the doctor said he had removed a foreign object from Chanel's hand. The DNA sample taken from Chanel's voluntary swab was then run through the system, and it matched the DNA found at the scene of Karina's murder. That foreign object removed from Chanel's hand was now believed to be a fragment of Karina's broken tooth, which had snapped off when she bit him.
I'm Detective Deal. You're located at the 107 Precinct, second floor, Detective Squad area. Today's date is February 5th, 2017. Time is approximately 10:33 a.m. And I'm activating the tape this time.
Now that I've advised you of your rights, are you willing to answer questions?
Okay.
Yes? Okay. All right. All right. Chanel, why don't we start with, I think it was a Tuesday evening on August 2nd, 2016. Do you remember that date and that evening?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And where were you at that time?
I was in Spring Creek, at the Gateway and Spring Creek Mall.
Okay, by Gateway and Spring Creek Mall?
Spring Creek Park.
Park?
Yeah.
All right. Were you inside the park?
Yeah.
Okay. And was anyone with you, or were you by yourself?
By myself.
All right. About what time did you get to the park?
About 5 o'clock.
And were you on a trail or you in the grass?
On the trail.
Okay. Now, while you were in the park, did something happen?
Yes.
What happened while you were in the park?
On the park, there was this girl jogging, and then nothing led to another because some other situation.
All right. Well, the girl that was jogging, was she by herself or with anybody else?
By herself.
And when you first saw her, where were you? Were you in the grass or were you on the trail?
On the trail.
All right. And were you moving or were you standing still?
Like I was moving, listening to music.
You were walking or jogging?
Walking.
Walking? And you were walking towards her?
I was walking towards, and then side to side, and then one thing led to another.
You said as she got next to you, when she got next to you as she was running and you were walking, what happened then?
And then, because of a past situation, I got angry and then started hitting her and stuff like that.
Okay. Before you did, where did you hit her?
Like in the face and like in the mouth.
In the face and the mouth. Mm-hmm. Before you hit her, did you grab her or did you just hit her right away?
I kind of grabbed her first.
Grabbed her? And like, how did you grab her? What part of her body did you grab?
Like I started hitting her because of the incident that was going on earlier.
Right, but did you grab her before you started hitting her, or was the first thing you did was to hit her? What was the first thing you did?
I grabbed her.
Okay. And how did you grab her?
Like this.
Okay. With both hands?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what part of her body did you grab? Do you remember? Her shoulders, her waist, her neck? Do you remember?
Like around here.
Okay, around the shoulders. Did she say anything at all? No. Did she scream?
No, because her tooth broke.
I'm sorry? Her tooth broke? Right. Were you covering her mouth at all? No? Okay. How long would you say you were hitting her for? About how long in time?
The whole thing was like about 5 minutes.
5 minutes, all right. How far off the path would you say you dragged her into the grass? Like how many feet about?
About Probably about 10.
Okay. What was the status of her clothing? How was her clothing?
Kind of like pulled off.
Pulled off?
Yeah.
Okay, what was pulled off?
Like her clothes.
Now, you said you did this because you had some anger, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Can you tell me about that anger?
Cause I used to live in a different address than I currently live at now.
Right.
And then sometimes there's this man that comes around there. He play like loud music and carry a lot of friends around there. I didn't like it because I feel unsafe and comfortable, and I like my place private and peaceful. And usually I just...
No, I know, Chanel, I know that, like last night, you really didn't want to talk about this, right? Last night. But today, it was okay, you wanted to talk about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that you told Detective Brown you wanted to straighten your life out, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then Detective Brown said to wait until you came in the room to talk about it, that's right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you did, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Chanel Lewis, who was 20 years old, was arrested and charged with second-degree murder.
Chanel! We were hiding out for 6 months. Come this way, look this way, look this way. Look this way. Look this way, right here, sir.
After his arrest, Karina's family reached out to the public and asked for opinions on how the remaining money from the GoFundMe fund should be used. "You all made donations, so you all deserve to have a voice," Phil wrote on the fundraising page. Later, Phil said he distributed nearly $300,000, including making a contribution to Archbishop Malloy High School to create a scholarship in Karina's honor. After that, Chanel Lewis was formally indicted by a grand jury on multiple charges. In total, there were 13 counts related to murder and sexual assault connected to the death of Karina Vetrano. He was facing the possibility of life in prison without parole. Lewis pleaded not guilty.
Tonight, Lewis's relatives say it's not possible.
To the family, I'm sorry for their loss, but they have the wrong person.
Richard Lewis is the suspect's father.
He's a wonderful young man. Wonderful young man.
My brother is a skinny, you saw him on the TV. He's a skinny guy who cannot kill such a strong girl because she's a strong person. He alone can never kill a person like that.
Today, I would like to thank all those who have reached out and give their support for me and my family. I love my son. I support my son. I raised my son to be a God-fearing man and to respect life. My son is friendly, God-fearing, and would not hurt anybody. My son has a mental health problem and needs help. He's not a criminal and need mental resources. Please respect my family privacy. Please respect my family privacy in this matter and allow my son to get help in due process.
Karina's family spent a long time pushing for investigators to start using familial DNA searching in criminal cases. Then, in June 2017, the New York State Commission on Forensic Science agreed to allow that method to be used in investigations involving murder, rape, and certain other serious crimes. The decision was made despite objections from civil rights organizations, which argued that the practice could pull law-abiding people into criminal investigations simply because of their family connections. By the time the commission approved the policy, Chanel Lewis had already been arrested. So the decision didn't change anything for Karina's case, but it could affect future investigations. As mentioned earlier, investigators had also looked into a possible connection between Karina's murder and the killing of Vanessa Marcotte. Later, authorities determined that the two cases were not related. On April 15, 2017, officials announced that Angelo Colon Ortiz, who was 31 years old, had been arrested after DNA evidence linked him to Vanessa's case. He later pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and unarmed robbery, and on November 2, 2022, he was sentenced to life in prison. He will not be eligible for parole until 2067, when he will be 81 years old. November 2018.
Packed inside of the courtroom, filled with family and friends on both sides. As you mentioned, it was also very emotional. Karina Vetrano's mother was inside of that courtroom. She held onto a cross most of the time, crying. Karina Vetrano's accused killer, Chanel Lewis, obviously in the courtroom. His mother was there as well, and she held onto a Bible, also in tears most of the time. Now, opening statements got underway. Defense attorneys with the Legal Aid Society representing Lewis told jurors today Lewis is innocent. They have serious doubts about the evidence, adding there are no witnesses, and Lewis was coerced into confessing, and people are rushing to judgment.
In his opening statement, Assistant District Attorney Brad Leventhal said, "They crossed paths by chance. She didn't provoke him. He saw her, and he killed her." Prosecutors said that Chanel didn't have a girlfriend, had very few social connections, and didn't have a job. They described him as someone who often carried a lot of anger. According to their theory, it was that anger that led to the attack, which they described as random. That day, he took out his anger on a beautiful young woman, a girl wearing a top, the prosecutor said. However, the defense pushed back against those claims. There won't be any eyewitnesses. No one is going to walk into this courtroom and say, "He did it," said defense attorney Jenny Chung. She also argued that the prosecution was trying to, force a square peg into a round hole. Chung questioned the police interrogation of her client as well, which lasted more than 10 hours. Procedures were shortened. The prosecution's evidence is incomplete, she said. The defense also claimed that the DNA evidence linking Chanel Lewis to the crime scene was unreliable. Attorney Robert Moeller argued that the crime scene had been compromised by multiple people, including Karina's father, and therefore could not be considered a fully reliable source of evidence. Lewis's lawyers also said the confession had been obtained improperly and should not have been used in court. According to them, he confessed only because he wanted to leave after waiting for hours. But the prosecution focused heavily on what he actually told police. He was angry, and he took that anger out on Karina Vetrano. "Those are his own words. He is the man who strangled Karina Vetrano," the prosecutor said. The prosecution also emphasized what they described as strong DNA evidence. An expert witness testified that the DNA profile taken from material found under Karina's fingernails, on her neck, and on her cell phone matched Chanel's DNA profile. 2 NYPD detectives also testified about the detailed and extensive process used to collect evidence in the case. Some of the images shown during testimony were so disturbing that Karina's parents were visibly shaken. At times they couldn't hold back their tears, and at one point, they even had to leave the courtroom.
Closing arguments on the emotional trial over the death of 30-year-old Karina Vetrano have now wrapped up. The prosecution painting the suspect, 22-year-old Chanel Lewis, as a frustrated, angry, and lonely young man who spotted Vetrano on an after-work jog at a park in Howard Beach and took out all his anger by taking her life.
He was mad, and he took out his anger, and he took out his frustrations on Karina, grabbing her, throwing her to the ground, beating her, and strangling her until she was dead.
But the defense argued that it was the police department that was frustrated with their 6-month-long investigation that had yet to find a suspect, that Lewis was singled out, and that detectives worked endlessly to fit evidence they had to build a case against him.
They never allowed the evidence to develop a theory. Rather, they just wanted the evidence to fit their theory.
The exhausting trial lasted 7 days. Soon, it was time for the jury to decide the fate of the case. After a long day of deliberations, the jurors spent more than an hour reviewing the second of the defendant's 2 recorded confessions. They also asked to have 74 pages of testimony from the prosecution's DNA expert read back to them. On top of that, the jury requested to look again at the autopsy photographs of Karina. After a day and a half of deliberations, 5 jurors said they could not return a guilty verdict beyond a reasonable doubt. That created what's known as a hung jury. The jurors sent a letter to the judge explaining that they could not overcome their disagreements and had already exhausted every option to reach a unanimous decision. After a full day of deliberations, we remain divided. It seems like we can't move forward anymore. We believe we've exhausted all possible options. Because of that deadlock, the judge declared a mistrial.
The parents of Karina Vetrano looking somber and stunned leaving the courtroom. Relatives in tears after the judge declared a mistrial, a ruling which sent shock through the courtroom.
Mr. Vetrano.
Just a moment. Stunned silence from the family of Karina Vetrano moments after learning justice would be delayed.
Vetrano's family did not speak after the ruling. Lewis's legal team, however, did.
The jury is understanding that DNA is not all it, confession is not all it, and there are issues in the case that, as you all see, is much more complex.
Is this a win for you?
Well, it's not a conviction, so I guess that's a good thing, but closure would be a good thing too.
That decision meant the case would have to be tried all over again, which made the legal process drag on even longer. For Karina's family and loved ones, it meant continuing a painful ordeal. They would have to relive the details of the tragedy once again and go through another trial in their search for justice. Prosecutors didn't want to take any chances during the second trial, so they prepared new evidence. One of the key pieces was a detailed record of Chanel's internet searches leading up to his arrest. Among those searches were queries about indictments, plea deals, criminal prosecution, and news reports about Karina's murder. Then, in March 2019, the retrial began.
Karina Vetrano's father returned to the stand today in the retrial of the man accused of strangling her back in 2016.
At one point, Vetrano's father dropped to his knees in front of the jurors as he emotionally described finding his daughter's stiff, cold body in a nearby trail.
The defense once again insisted that their client was innocent, arguing that his earlier recorded confession had been obtained under pressure. His attorneys also claimed that if he had truly been the killer, his DNA would have been found all over the crime scene in much larger quantities. But the prosecution remained firm. Prosecutors emphasized that the defendant's DNA matched the evidence, and they also pointed to the recorded confessions in which he admitted that he killed her. Then, just one day before the jury was supposed to begin deliberations in the retrial, the defense attorneys received an anonymous letter. It was supposedly written by an NYPD officer who expressed concerns about the investigation. The letter included several allegations about the early stages of the case. Among other things, it claimed that during the first strategy meetings, NYPD Chief Michael Kemper repeatedly said police were looking for 2 strong white men from Howard Beach. Sonny Hostin, a senior legal correspondent for ABC News, reported that if the letter turned out to be genuine and the concerns described in it were accurate, it could potentially become grounds for an appeal. One of Lewis's attorneys said, "We received disturbing and credible information suggesting that the police withheld critically important details about other potential suspects, and that information was never shared with the defense." The defense also said it had become known that police approached Lewis to obtain a DNA sample as part of a large-scale sweep that, according to them, showed racial bias. During that operation, DNA samples were collected from more than 360 African-American men in Howard Beach and nearby areas of Brooklyn and Queens. In light of this new information, we plan to file a motion on Monday requesting a hearing regarding the prosecution's failure to disclose exculpatory evidence, as well as a separate hearing concerning unconstitutional racial profiling during this investigation, the attorneys said. In response, Sergeant Brendan Ryan said that the NYPD had conducted a thorough investigation into the murder, and as the prosecution presented by the Queens District Attorney shows, the evidence clearly demonstrates that Chanel Lewis is responsible for her death. He also noted that numerous court hearings and 2 criminal trials, which took place over more than 2 years, had already carefully examined the issues raised in the anonymous letter. According to him, the letter contained many false claims and inaccuracies. Assistant District Attorney Leventhal also said, "This anonymous letter contains no verifiable information. The person who wrote it is clearly trying to disrupt the trial."
This morning, the judge denied a request from the defense asking for a hearing on this.
After that, the case was handed over to the jury for deliberation. The importance of that moment was obvious. The first trial had already ended in a deadlock, with the jury unable to reach a verdict and the court declaring a mistrial. Neither side was treating the outcome with too much confidence or complacency. There was a lot at stake, not just for the prosecution and the defense, but also for Karina's family, who had already endured years of uncertainty. On April 1st, 2019, the verdict was finally announced. Inside the courtroom, everyone held their breath.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty.
Chanel Lewis was found guilty.
A very different response at this time around from Vetrano's parents leaving the courtroom.
God, tell us what's going through your mind right now. Mrs. Vetrano. Thank you, Jesus. Keep moving on. Say it again. Thank you, Jesus. Sir, your thoughts?
Jubilation.
You're not allowed to interview.
Justice has been served.
I am thanking those jurors for listening to the overwhelming evidence.
All the anger, all the years of pain, but mostly the anger was lifted, it was gone.
Lewis lifted his handcuffed hands in a farewell wave to his family and supporters as he was led off to jail. Some of those supporters today say they've followed the case very closely, and a family spokesperson says they question the verdict.
How does a young man walk into Howard Beach, murder a young lady that was physically fit, and walk out of Howard Beach without being seen on any camera from the Gateway Mall, any camera in Howard Beach at all?
After the guilty verdict was finally delivered, the case once again slipped into a state of uncertainty.
Now to a stunning development in the Karina Vetrano murder case. Sentencing for her convicted killer has been postponed because of new claims of juror misconduct.
For Karina's family, it was another painful blow, and a reminder that even a guilty verdict doesn't always bring an immediate or final sense of closure. It was claimed that one of the jurors accused 3 others of ignoring the judge's instructions about when and how the case was allowed to be discussed. The judge agreed to delay sentencing in order to hold a hearing with the jurors. Queens District Attorney Richard A. Brown later responded to the defense's accusations, presenting a different version of what had happened inside the jury room. In a sworn written statement referenced in the motion, Juror A claimed that Juror B had started expressing conclusions about the case from the very beginning of the trial and continued doing so throughout the proceedings. According to the statement, Juror B told Juror A, "Well, I've already made up my mind, and I hope you have too." After the victim's parents testified on the second day of the trial, District Attorney Brown wrote that those comments from Juror B, identified in the motion as the 4th juror, did not show prior bias. Instead, he said they reflected an emotional reaction to the shocking testimony about the condition of the victim's body. During deliberations, jurors are required to rely only on the evidence presented in court. However, according to a sworn statement, some jurors began bringing up information that had never been introduced as evidence, and some of that information may not have been accurate. Juror D told the others that the absence of the defendant's DNA in samples from the victim's intimate area could be explained by the idea that the body might have absorbed the male DNA. She allegedly told Juror A, "I know this better than you, you're just a man. I was raped." The motion argued that by saying this, the juror had improperly supplemented the evidence presented in court with her own personal experience. Because of that, other jurors may have felt they couldn't question her statement and were forced to accept it as fact. That kind of communication was described as juror misconduct, since she had essentially become an unsworn expert supporting the prosecution. In other words, the jury had stepped beyond the evidence that was officially presented in court. Attorneys from the Legal Aid Society representing Chanel Lewis, Robert Moeller, Julia L. Burke and Jenny Chung submitted these arguments to the court. However, Juror D denied ever telling the other jurors that she had been a victim of rape. In a sworn statement submitted along with the prosecution's response, she wrote,
"I have never been raped, and I have never told anyone that I was raped. As far as I know, during the deliberations, no other juror said that she had been raped either."
In another example mentioned in the motion, defense attorneys said that one of the jurors had drawn conclusions based on information that was never part of the evidence presented in court. Juror C compared injuries from a completely unrelated rape case with the injuries suffered by Karina Vetrano, and claimed that sexual assault had been proven because the injuries in both cases were the same. The motion argued that the information Juror C shared with the other jurors was improper, because it essentially introduced facts that had never been presented during the trial, and went beyond a juror's ordinary life experience, knowledge, or common sense. Juror C admitted that he had...
After the verdict, CBS 2 spoke to the jury foreman, who called it a slam dunk case. When asked what the most damning evidence was...
Two things. The confession, it wasn't coerced. DNA was like so overwhelming.
He said the jury was unanimous on the murder charges, but there were at least 2 holdouts on the sex abuse charges.
However, in another interview after the verdict, one of the jurors who agreed to speak with reporters anonymously said he had felt pressure from other jurors to vote for a guilty verdict. In the end, the judge rejected the claims of juror misconduct. After that decision, the sentencing could finally move forward. April 23rd, 2019.
With respect to murder in the first degree, the sentence of this court is that you spend the rest of your natural life in jail without any possibility of parole.
It's the moment the family of Karina Vetrano has been waiting more than 2.5 years for, giving passionate testimonies in the courtroom ahead of sentencing for Chanel Lewis, the man who will now serve life in prison for her death.
There were no more Merry Christmases, no more Happy New Years, no more happy birthdays. There is no more pleasure in life, no more smiles, no more happiness. Those are all taken by that convicted, murdering rapist. Only my faith in God and my belief in heaven keeps me from killing myself for fear of not being allowed into heaven to see my baby again.
Describing his family walking the earth as zombies, just waiting to see Karina, Phil Vetrano told 22-year-old Chanel Lewis his daughter had a message for him.
She told me that if you stand up here today in court and ask for her forgiveness, tell her you're sorry, she will forgive you. But remember, those are not my words, and I will never forgive you.
Her mother brought a piece of Karina into the courtroom.
These are Karina's shoes. These are the shoes that she put on the morning of August 2nd as she prepared to work and wore throughout the workday. As tiny as they are, Your Honor, these are the shoes of a giant, a valiant warrior, and a queen.
At times, you could see Lewis over her shoulder.
The vacant expression you show is merely a reflection of your detached and empty soul. You suffered and died 1,000,000 deaths every second of every day. You breathed, you ate, you searched your phone for pornography and forcible rape. But God was watching you all the time, Chanel Lewis.
The judge added 32 years in prison to the life sentence for second-degree murder and sexual assault. This is a situation where both families have lost, he said. The worst nightmare any parent could imagine: your child goes out for a run and never comes back. One day, you'll see that the people who followed this case will move on with their lives, and you'll be left alone. But I'll tell you this, when that day comes, you'll be behind bars.
The defense spoke on behalf of Lewis, and then he said just a few words.
I'm innocent. I'm sorry for the family's loss, but I didn't do this.
Assistant District Attorney John Ryan said that the defendant in this case had not shown a single drop of remorse for this brutal crime. I hope this sentence brings the family at least some comfort, knowing that the person who killed their loved one will never see freedom again. After the sentencing, his mother and several supporters gathered outside the courthouse to protest. As the lead prosecutor walked toward his car, people shouted in his direction.
Shame on you. You're racist.
Minutes later, the lead prosecutor emerged in front of the protesters rather than taking an alternate route.
They don't like black men. Can you fix it?
And in further protest, they shut down Queens Boulevard for about 2 minutes.
No justice! No justice!
You saw 2 people arrested there. Some of the groups that they're involved with said they'll take their protests to Howard Beach in the upcoming days and weeks. Meanwhile, Chanel Lewis's legal team is already working on his appeal.
Those who believe in his innocence argued that the NYPD was under intense pressure to quickly find a suspect and close the case, and that investigators focused on him because of that pressure. Around 40,000 people signed a petition calling for the case to be reviewed by the Conviction Integrity Unit. Despite the calls for his release, and the ongoing public debate, the legal outcome did not change. After 2 trials, 1 mistrial, and years of reviews and disputes, the jury found him guilty, and the court issued its final sentence. For the justice system, that verdict marked the formal end of the legal process. In a case filled with complexity and controversy, the conviction brought a legal conclusion, even if it didn't bring emotional closure to a story that had consumed a family, a community, and public attention for years. Karina Vetrano's family says they want her to be remembered for more than just the circumstances of her death. Through scholarships, memorial initiatives, and community efforts, they are trying to keep her name and her story alive in the community she loved.
With something so tragic and despicable, we have something good coming out of this. We have a scholarship.
Amid all the legal battles, appeals, and public debates, one person often faded into the background: Karina Vetrano. Her life, not the legal fight that unfolded after her death, remained the true center of this story. And in the end, that's where this story returns. Karina Vetrano was a daughter, a friend, a young woman building her future, someone who worked with children and filled her days with routine, purpose, and plans. On an ordinary summer evening, she stepped out of her home to do something she had done countless times before. She went for a run, and she never came back. That simple, devastating reality became the heart of this case. How an ordinary moment can suddenly become irreversible. And how the loss of one life can leave a silence that a family, a community, and everyone who followed her story can feel for years.
A memorial as beautiful as Karina Vetrano, tucked away in Spring Creek Park, where a butterfly made of stones, an angel, and candles sit. But perhaps the most important fixture of all, her father, who returns here every morning to remember his daughter.
It's the only place I could go to get peace. And it might seem strange because right where I'm sitting is where I found her. But I think because it's the only place where I have any control.
If she could be here today, or you could speak to her today, what would you say to her?
I speak to her every day. Every single day I speak to her. And she speaks to us in volumes.
Karina's father says her voice will always be heard, from the sound of the birds here to the writings on her blog. And they plan to find a way to get her work put into a book. How do you think Karina would want to be remembered?
Just as she is. Just as everybody sees her. She's special, she was smart, she was beautiful, and she was destined for greater things. And she has achieved that. We don't know what the rest of our life is going to be like. But it's a good feeling to know that now we could move forward.
Late in the evening, February 8th, 2017, Grove City, Ohio. 21-year-old Ohio State University student Reagan Tokes is wrapping up her shift at the restaurant Boda. After a long evening of work, she finishes up, gathers her things, and steps outside. Around 10 o'clock that night, she walks out of the building and heads toward her car parked behind the restaurant. It's something she's done many times before, almost like part of her normal routine after work. And every week, almost without fail, she sends one short message to her family back in Florida, just a quick text to let them know she's okay.
I'm home.
But that night, the message never came. At around 10:30, her sister sends her a text. The message goes through, it's delivered, but there's no reply. Her father starts calling. Again and again, the phone keeps ringing for 4 hours straight. Then, sometime around 2 in the morning, the signal suddenly disappears. The next morning, Reagan doesn't show up for her lecture. Her dorm room is empty. The bed is neatly made. Her bag is lying on the floor. A few hours later, police receive a call. A passerby reports that near the entrance to Scioto Grove Park, he has found the body of a young woman. She's lying in the snow, naked. No phone, no identification. The only things on her are a small circle-shaped tattoo and a delicate little necklace. A few hours later, police ask Reagan's roommates a simple question. Did she have a tattoo like this? And in that moment, everyone understands what's happened. But the most terrifying part was still ahead, because very quickly, detectives realized something chilling. That night, Reagan didn't just disappear, she was abducted, forced to drive from ATM to ATM, and in the final minutes of her life, she spent them begging to be allowed to live.
I just want to live. I just want...
Alright friends, let me pause for just a minute. I'm really curious where my audience is watching from, so, I'd love to ask you something real quick. Tell me what city you're in while you're watching this video, and what time it is for you right now. Thanks so much for taking a moment to share that. Go ahead and drop it in the comments. And with that said, let's keep going. Grove City, Ohio. Once a large farming community, today Grove City is the kind of place people love to visit, especially if they enjoy the outdoors. There's a lot of history here, a lot of culture, and honestly, it feels like one of those quiet American towns where life moves just a little slower. Not far from the city, there are several state parks where people spend their time hiking, kayaking, or hanging out at paintball parks. In the fall, families even go pumpkin picking, you know, one of those classic seasonal traditions. And just about 15 minutes away is Ohio State University, one of the largest universities in the country with around 60,000 students. And back in 2017, one of those proud students was 21-year-old Reagan Tokes. Her family had recently moved from Ohio down to Florida because of work, but Reagan decided to stay in Columbus, Ohio. She wanted to continue studying at Ohio State, the only university she had ever dreamed of attending. In fact, it was the only school she even applied to. Her father, Toby, had once taken her to a football game there when she was still a little girl, and from that moment on, the decision was made in her mind. That was where she belonged. She was so confident she would get in that she even told people she'd already been accepted before the official letter ever arrived. And eventually, it did. She was accepted. After that, she threw herself completely into student life. Reagan was studying psychology, and she already had a clear plan for the future. Her idea was simple: work for a few years after graduating, and then eventually open her own practice. Family meant everything to her. She was especially close with her dad Toby, her mom Lisa, and her younger sister Mackenzie, whom she jokingly called Gigi. They talked several times a day, and no matter how busy Reagan was with school, she always made time for them. Her mother often said Reagan had been a little ball of energy since she was a baby, always ready to jump into something new. But what really stood out, even from a young age, was her compassion. Reagan always seemed to notice the people standing off to the side, the ones who looked like they might need a friend. Lisa once remembered how she'd sometimes have to stop the car and wait while Reagan carefully picked up tiny bugs from the road so they wouldn't get stepped on. She just couldn't stand seeing anything suffer. The Tokes family spent a lot of time at church, and during holidays, Reagan often traveled with church groups on mission trips. People described her as fun, a little carefree, very talkative, and, honestly, a total social butterfly. She also loved sports. Reagan played varsity tennis and lacrosse, so with everything Grove City had to offer, it really felt like the perfect place for her. She lived off campus with 4 roommates: Jackie, Madison, Kirsten, and Stephanie. They had actually been placed together randomly, but right away they clicked. Before long, they had become close friends. Some of them even worked together at the same local restaurant. Lately, though, Reagan had been going through a bit of a difficult time. She and her boyfriend Jake had decided to break up, mutually. Reagan was so focused on finishing school and graduating with the best grades possible that, well, they both agreed that it was probably the right decision.
The best thing right now, they figured, was to focus on school without any distractions. And then later, well, they'd just see where life took them.
Her roommates said the breakup had been really hard for her. But Reagan and Jake still talked a lot, and they both said they'd always stay best friends. As her final year of college was coming to an end, Reagan even posted on social media that her dad had already bought a beautiful frame for her diploma. You could tell this was a really emotional moment in her life. Like everything she had worked toward was finally getting close. By February of 2017, graduation was only a few months away, and she was busier than ever, trying to finish everything she needed before the semester ended. On the evening of February 8th, Reagan left her apartment to go to work her shift at Boda Bar and Restaurant. That night was actually pretty quiet, and she finished work a little before 10 o'clock. After her shift, she walked out to her car, which, like many of the other employees, she always parked on the street behind the restaurant. Reagan had a habit. She always texted her family to let them know she got home safely. Her entire family lived about 1,000 miles away, and she never wanted them worrying about her. But that night, the message never came. And that was strange, because only about an hour before leaving work, she had been texting with her dad. Her sister Mackenzie sent her a message around 10:30 that night. The message was delivered, but there was no reply. For the next 4 hours, Toby kept calling and texting her again and again, but the phone just kept ringing. Then, around 2 in the morning, the calls suddenly stopped going through. It seemed like the phone battery had died. The next morning, everyone woke up and immediately checked their phones. But there was nothing. No replies. No missed calls from Reagan. Maybe she had gotten into a car accident on the way home. Or maybe it was something much simpler. Like she had gone to a friend's place and forgotten to bring her charger. Even though they really wanted to believe that last possibility, deep down, they knew something wasn't right. This just wasn't like Reagan. She would never ignore that many calls and messages on her phone, and she would never want her family to worry. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, Kirsten knocked on Reagan's bedroom door. The room was empty. Her bed was neatly made, and her school bag was lying off to the side. Jackie, Madison, and Stephanie hadn't heard her come home either, and at that point, they started to feel it too. That growing sense of dread. They began messaging people on social media and calling other classmates, hoping someone had seen her. Lisa called the university, and they confirmed that Reagan had not shown up for her morning lecture. That was enough. She hung up the phone and called the police. But the person she spoke with explained that she couldn't officially file a missing person report because she wasn't the last person who had seen Reagan. The last people who had seen her were the co-workers from the restaurant where she worked. So Reagan's roommates went back there. Her manager confirmed that she had indeed been working that evening and had left after her shift ended. And although her car wasn't parked in front of the restaurant anymore, there were signs that she had driven away in it. He didn't waste any time. The manager was able to file a missing person report.
So we had a employee leave work last night, and she has not been home. Her phone is off. Nobody can find her because she hasn't been home at all either. Her mom's been calling, looking for her. We can't find her car around work.
While everyone continued searching for her, around noon dispatchers received a call from a very shaken passerby.
Hello, 911. Yeah, I think there's a body out here. I don't know if this is a fake or what. Please send somebody. Hurry. This is really freaking awful. Please hurry, send somebody.
Okay, stay right there, sir.
Near the entrance to a park in Grove City, a man had discovered the naked body of a young woman, partially covered by snow. When police arrived, it quickly became clear that she was already dead. She had no purse with her, no phone, and none of her clothes were anywhere nearby. There was a small circle-shaped tattoo on her body and a delicate little necklace. But other than that, there was nothing around that could help identify who she was.
Continuing to follow developing news after a young woman's body was found outside Scioto Grove Metro Park.
Also, no official word quite yet as to who this body belongs to. Of course, once we learn that information, hopefully today, we will be sure to pass it on to you.
It could have been a random act. It could have been somebody that this occurred someplace else and she was dumped here.
Around 3 o'clock that afternoon, Reagan's roommates were still at Bodega when they heard the news that the body of a young woman had been found. When police arrived to take their missing person report, they asked the girls about a small tattoo, and the moment they described it, the girls felt sick with fear, because Reagan had a tattoo exactly like that.
And we are also following a case from OSU where a female student has been reported missing. According to the university's statement, they are aware of the missing persons report and direct any questions to Columbus police.
And just a few hours later, the news everyone had been trying not to think about was officially confirmed. The body that had been found belonged to Reagan Tokes.
A missing persons case in Columbus is now a murder investigation. Police have confirmed the body found yesterday in a Grove City park is an OSU student.
21-year-old Reagan Tokes was last seen Wednesday night leaving a bar in the Short North where she worked. And tonight, we have team coverage with reaction from OSU students and employees who work in the Short North.
The Columbus Police Missing Persons report says that according to a Bodega employee, Tokes usually has a bartender walk her to her car, but didn't when she left Wednesday night. Thursday afternoon, Tokes' body was spotted by a motorist at Scioto Grove Metro Park in Grove City. Investigators are now trying to fill in the timeline and identify a suspect. Did she make it to her car? Niall Woodson says it would be potentially easy for something to go unseen on those streets behind Bodega.
There's one light here on the block which, keeps this area bright, but the whole next block is very dark. It's very dark. There's not a street light for another block down.
So did something happen here or somewhere else? Was her killer someone she knew or a total stranger? If investigators know the answers, they're not saying. Tokes' roommates did tell police she was recently depressed over a breakup with her ex-boyfriend, but they stated to their knowledge it was a mutual breakup.
The autopsy later confirmed something truly horrific. Reagan had been sexually assaulted and then shot. She had been hit by 2 bullets, one to the back of her head and another near the side of her face. The bullets were still lodged inside her skull. Experts determined that the shots had been fired from behind at almost point-blank range. It was, essentially, an execution-style killing. Police said it was still unclear whether she had been shot in the same place where her body was found, or if she had been killed somewhere else and then brought there afterward. Investigators also could not find a single shell casing at the scene. The news spread so quickly that police struggled to control the flow of information. And because of that, Reagan's sister, Mackenzie, learned about her sister's death through a post on Instagram. Reagan's mother, Lisa, said her daughter didn't have enemies. She couldn't think of a single person who would want to hurt her, let alone commit something this brutal. But in Ohio, there was something else many people were thinking about. Something that had already been worrying the community for a while. In the weeks leading up to Reagan's murder, the area had been shaken by a series of attacks and robberies, each one seeming more frightening than the last. People were being grabbed from behind, threatened, or confronted by someone holding a gun or a knife. The attacker, who always wore a mask, demanded their bags or wallets.
Residents are on high alert tonight after last night's latest armed robbery. This is the 3rd attack in this neighborhood in 2 weeks. All of the victims are women. NBC4's Tyler Carter is live from German Village tonight, where residents have called a safety meeting. Tyler?
Yes, Ellie, since that last attack last night, the German Village Society called a meeting with Columbus Police, and residents is going on right now in their headquarters. They want to know exactly what is going on in this neighborhood, and residents I spoke with say they are not taking these attacks lightly.
I heard someone yell help, and so I ran outside, and half of the neighbors were already out here.
Last night, just before 10 o'clock, a woman who lives in this German Village neighborhood on Mohawk and Frankfurt Street was robbed by gunpoint and attacked. Columbus police say the woman was getting things out of the trunk of her car when a man walked up behind her and demanded she give him her purse.
Police didn't know who this man was, or even whether all of those attacks were connected to each other. But one question kept coming up. Could Reagan's murder somehow be linked to those assaults? One woman, who had been the victim of one of those attacks, later said that the moment she heard what had happened to Reagan, she felt it in her gut. Like, this had to be connected. She said she was convinced that the man who attacked her would have killed her too, if he'd had the chance. But investigators had very few leads that could seriously support that theory. So, the questioning had to start with the people closest to Reagan, including her ex-boyfriend Jake. He quickly became a person of interest for police, and it wasn't only because they had recently broken up. Jake had also posted something on Instagram about her death, and detectives said that, there was something about that post that gave them a strange feeling.
When was the last time you talked to her? Probably a week and a half ago. Is that normal? Well, not usually. I talk to her every day, but we were breaking up, kind of. It's just we didn't have enough time really for each other. We had to focus on school. She even said it in one of the texts. I mean, I'm one of her best friends. Okay, Jake, let me ask you this. Don't take this the wrong way. Okay. Why in the world would you write out that you're in a better place? Well, can I see what I am? I was talking to her like she's in heaven. You just don't hear it very often, better place when somebody was living a good life. Well, no, I know, but if I were to go today, I would know that I would go somewhere better. That's just what I believe, so. You said you posted on Instagram? Yes, sir.
But Reagan's roommates told police there was absolutely no chance that Jake had anything to do with it. He adored her. And during their entire relationship, they had never even had a serious argument. Jake was devastated by what had happened. He was just trying to cope with the loss in the only way he knew how. In the end, there was nothing suspicious about his post at all. It was simply the heartfelt message of someone who had lost a person he deeply cared about. His alibi checked out, and police moved on with the investigation. A security camera inside Boda had only managed to capture a small moment of Reagan leaving the building, and on the footage, there was no sign of anyone following her or waiting nearby. Using license plate recognition technology, detectives were finally able to locate Reagan's car. It was parked on a residential street not far away. It was clear someone had tried to set the vehicle on fire. There were cigarette burn marks on the outside, and inside the car there was a strong smell of gasoline. But the attempt to burn it had failed, which meant investigators were able to collect several pieces of evidence. They found a few cigarette butts, a gas can, and several ATM receipts. All of it was taken for forensic testing and analysis. The ATM receipts showed that someone had attempted to withdraw large amounts of money several times, but the transactions had been declined. Only one withdrawal had actually gone through $60. While detectives waited for additional information from the banks, the community was still trying to process what had happened. Many students were now afraid to walk to and from campus alone, thinking, what if they were next? And honestly, neither the university nor the police had much they could say that would truly calm people down.
News of Reagan's death, people who work in the service industry in the Short North say they're worried about their own safety. NBC4's Olivia Fecta was live in the Short North tonight and spoke to some of those employees. Olivia.
Mark, a longtime bartender at Martini's, which is another restaurant and bar here in the Short North, says that the people who work in the service industry here in the Short North are very close-knit. So, of course, they were devastated to hear the news that one of their own who worked here at Bodegas was missing and then was found dead. I talked to that woman earlier today, and she, again, is a bartender, long time. She says while she usually uses public transportation to get to her job, a lot of servers and bartenders who work around here do drive to work, and some of them have to drive and park far away from their workplaces.
I mean, parking is an issue down there, and is a safety issue because, like, a lot of these places are not lit, you know, where we're parking. A lot of these public parking areas are not full of lights, you know, and so it can be a safety issue for us.
She, by no means, deserved any amount of harm, you know, sent her away. So, yeah, anybody with information yeah, please come forward because, we need to get justice for Reagan. One of those people that you meet and you don't forget. There's been a lot of hugs, a lot of crying, and it's sad, but this really puts in perspective how close we all really are with each other.
She was a loving, awesome, amazing person. I know she was studying at OSU, and she had a great personality, super warm and welcoming.
I'm like, this can't happen here. I haven't slept all night. I'm serious. That's all I've been thinking about. It's all night long.
Reagan Tokes' missing car was found on Oakwood Avenue on Columbus's east side. The Ohio Bureau of Criminal Investigation is assisting Grove City Police with this investigation, and they're asking the public for help in the search for clues. Anyone with information can call the Ohio BCI tip line.
Jake set up a fundraiser for the Tokes family. He was hoping that someday that money would go toward creating a scholarship in Reagan's name. She really loved her university and was so incredibly excited about graduating. Jake knew she would have wanted part of that money to help another student. Pretty soon, the fundraiser hit almost $100,000. 48 hours after Reagan's body was found, detectives got their first real break in the case. CCTV cameras connected to the ATMs listed on the receipts showed that it was actually Reagan herself withdrawing the money and trying to make those withdrawals at those specific times. And even though you couldn't see who was sitting with her in the car, investigators were pretty confident there was someone else in that vehicle, and most likely, that person was forcing Reagan to do it. Shortly after, police got the DNA results back from the cigarette butts. They were actually surprised by how fast those results came in, but that was because the DNA matched someone who was already in the police database. This was a man with a long criminal history, 29-year-old Brian Lee Golsby. He had only gotten out of prison a few months before. Police knew him well from a lot of different cases, and the deeper investigators dug into Brian's history, the more disturbing it got. He had been committing crimes since childhood, and at this point, he was a convicted sex offender level 3. According to an assessment by the Ohio Department of Youth Services, as a teenager, he had sexually assaulted 5-year-old girls and 6-year-old boys. And his crimes just kept going. In 2011, he kidnapped a woman who was 8 months pregnant, along with her 2-year-old son, held them at knife point, and sexually assaulted her right in front of her child. He forced her to drive to multiple ATMs to withdraw cash. Then he made her drive to her own home, where he attacked her again. After that, he forced the woman to shower and brush her teeth to get rid of any DNA evidence, and then he stole some of her belongings and took off. But the evidence found inside the car was enough to move forward with charges. The problem was, the victim was so traumatized that she couldn't bring herself to testify. So Brian made a deal. He was originally charged with 2 armed robberies, rape and kidnapping, but in the end, he only pleaded guilty to robbery and attempted rape. He was sentenced to 6 years in prison, but he was actually released a few months early. After getting out, he was placed in supervised transitional housing, but the people running that program and his probation officer weren't keeping tabs on him the way they should have been. And this was despite the fact that he was classified as high risk and was wearing an ankle monitor at all times. He violated the terms of his supervision over and over again. When investigators pulled the data from his ankle monitor, it became pretty clear that a string of attacks and robberies that had been happening in the weeks leading up to Reagan's murder, all of that was connected to Brian. It all tied together, and people were honestly shocked when they found out that ankle monitor data doesn't go directly to police. Typically, that information first goes to the private companies that manufacture those devices, and then it's on them to pass it along. In this case, that either didn't happen the way it was supposed to, or nobody was actually checking the data. On top of that, there was no curfew attached to his monitor at all. The data from Brian's ankle monitor showed that he had been at every single location where Reagan was that night, starting with where her car was parked. Every street, every ATM, it all linked back to him. And that was backed up by the CCTV footage. On top of that, investigators found video of him purchasing a gas can, the same gas can that was later found in Reagan's car. The rape kit results came back as well, and those also matched Brian Golsby's DNA. On February 11th, At 4 in the morning, a SWAT team stormed his house and put him in handcuffs.
Yeah, the handcuffs. Oh, yeah. You get one? Yeah. Got on you real quick. Talk about anything if you ask a question, all that stuff. Just tell them Nick's gonna talk to him, and that's all. That's the only answer to give them. Yep. Works for me.
After that, he sat through a 6-hour interrogation with the very same detectives who had arrested him 6 years earlier. Brian looked upset and kept insisting that he had nothing to do with Reagan's death or the sexual assault. The only thing he admitted was that he had been inside her car. According to him, the robbery was the only thing he cared about. He said he had forced his way into her vehicle and made her drive to several ATMs. Later, he claimed, he made her go to the park where he ordered her to take off her clothes, turn her back to him, and wait for 30 minutes before leaving. After that, he said he quickly drove away in her car, and later abandoned it. He insisted that Reagan was still alive when he left. Police asked him whether anyone else had been involved, hoping he might slip up if he tried to shift the blame onto someone else. When detectives started showing him the DNA evidence, his story suddenly changed. Now, he claimed that he had been there when Reagan was shot, but he still denied being the one who killed her. Instead, he said it was the fault of a man named TJ, someone he claimed he owed money to. Brian said that after they got the money from Reagan, he believed she was going to be let go. But according to him, TJ forced him to rape her, and then TJ himself pointed the gun at her. Why do you think he did that? The detectives asked. Brian said he didn't know, but according to him, TJ had threatened to hurt his kids, and he felt like he had no choice but to go along with it to protect them. He said that Reagan, crying, kept repeating over and over,
"I just want to live. I just want to live."
According to Brian, TJ ordered Reagan to take off her clothes and start walking out into the field. Then, he claimed, TJ shot her in the back of the head. After that, he walked closer, stood over her, and fired another shot toward the side of her face.
At first I heard a click, nothing happened, so I'm taking the gun that he gave me to say, and it goes, pow! She falls. She lays on the ground. I'm looking on the floor, and then now shoots again, pow!
The story he told about that night, even the exact words he claimed Reagan had said, was so detailed that officers immediately realized something. He wasn't describing someone else. He was describing himself. Investigators found no evidence inside Reagan's car that suggested anyone else had been there besides Brian. And he couldn't provide any real information about the mysterious man he called TJ. Officers said Brian's criminal history spoke for itself, and every crime he had committed in the previous weeks had been carried out alone. His story was completely tangled and inconsistent, but detectives decided to play along, hoping he might reveal even more. And he did. He ended up telling them where he had hidden Reagan's clothes, where he had thrown away the gun and the shell casings, and where her phone could be found. Lieutenant Brian Davidson, who conducted the interrogation, later said, "There was pure evil in his eyes. Like, there was just nothing there." 29-year-old Brian Golsby was charged with aggravated murder, rape, armed robbery, and the kidnapping of Reagan Tokes.
She was a fourth year in psychology here at Ohio State. The announcement was made on the Grove City Police Department Facebook page on Saturday morning. Brian Lee Golsby has been arrested and charged with aggravated murder, aggravated kidnapping, and aggravated robbery. Golsby has previously served time in prison for 1 count of robbery and 1 count of attempted rape. Police say they believe there may be a connection between Golsby and recent attacks around the German Village area. And now our thoughts are with Tokes' family and her friends today as they begin to start their healing process.
Despite all his denials, Brian later made 2 phone calls from jail, one to his girlfriend and another to a friend. And During those conversations, he confessed to everything. I did it. I killed that girl for the money. After that, the timeline of what happened that night, reconstructed by police, became almost completely clear. At 9:45 that evening, just as Reagan was leaving after her shift, Brian forced her into her own car and ordered her to drive to an ATM. At 9:58, Reagan pulled up to a Chase bank and tried to withdraw $500 for Brian, but the transaction was declined. About 10 minutes later, they arrived at a Huntington bank, and CCTV cameras again captured Reagan attempting to withdraw money. That transaction was declined as well. Sometime between 10:18 and 10:30 that night, Brian forced Reagan to park the car in a dark alley where he sexually assaulted her. After that, he made her drive back to the first bank so she could withdraw $60. Between 11:12 and 11:41 that night, cameras at a gas station once again recorded them sitting in the car. Sometime between midnight and 1 in the morning, they drove to Scioto Grove Metro Park. There, he forced her to remove her clothes and begin walking into a dark field. While she begged for her life, he shot her twice in the head. After that, he used her car to flee the scene. He drove to his girlfriend's house, and around 1:45 in the morning the two of them went together to McDonald's, most likely to create an alibi. Later, he disposed of the gun and the shell casings by throwing them into a sewer, and then unsuccessfully tried to set Reagan's car on fire. In another chilling twist, Brian gave Reagan's wallet to his girlfriend, telling her it was an early Valentine's Day gift.
1 week after an Ohio State senior was last seen alive, her friends and family are saying their final goodbyes.
This service, this celebration of life, was a chance to focus more on the Reagan Tokes everyone knew and loved, and not so much on the sudden and violent way that her life ended. Friends describe her as an amazing, very loving and happy person. From the church service in Maumee to a graveside service in nearby Perrysburg, Reagan Tokes was then laid to rest. All across Ohio, people have expressed feeling a connection to Reagan Tokes and her family. An online guest book includes many comments like this one from a woman in Grove City. Although I didn't know her personally, this story has touched my heart tremendously. My heart just aches for all of you, and even more so, Reagan.
On February 15th, Reagan's funeral was held at the church she had attended since childhood. The church was completely full. There were people there who had known her for years, and others who had never even met her. When Brian was brought into court to hear the charges against him, Toby stood there, looking at him through the glass. He later said he was so angry, so emotional, and so overwhelmed that day, he honestly wondered how he didn't have a heart attack. According to Toby, as more details about Brian's past started coming out, it wasn't just shocking. It was almost impossible to understand how he had managed to avoid real accountability for so long. They had a monster in their hands, under their control, and they still let him slip away, he said.
The man accused of the rape and murder of OSU student Reagan Tokes pleaded not guilty.
Despite his confessions and all the evidence against him, Brian still refused to formally plead guilty, and preparations for the trial began. 3 months after her death, the day finally arrived, the day Reagan had worked so hard for. Graduation day. For the students and the university, it was a moment that felt both heartbreaking and bittersweet.
We will also never forget the classmates who were taken from us too soon, who helped us shape our hearts and minds.
And the degree Bachelor of Arts upon Reagan Delaney Tokes.
Reagan's family walked onto the stage in her place and accepted her diploma on her behalf, posthumously. You could feel the emotion in the entire room. Everyone stood up, and the crowd gave a long-standing ovation. In a statement, her family said, Reagan dreamed of becoming a Buckeye ever since she was a little kid. And today, that dream became real because she received her diploma from Ohio State University. As her parents and her family, we are incredibly proud of her and everything she achieved. The opportunity to receive a higher education is a tremendous gift. But along with that gift, a person must also have the desire, the dedication, the discipline, and the perseverance to make it happen. Reagan had all of those qualities, and honestly, even more. And the same is true for every student graduating here today. We congratulate them on this achievement, and we ask them to use that gift to help make the world a better place, the kind of world Reagan wanted to see, but now can no longer change herself. In the middle of March 2018, the trial of Brian began.
Jurors began their day outside the courtroom. They were taken to the locations where investigators say Brian Golsby, a convicted felon, kidnapped, raped, and murdered the Ohio State student. Prosecutors say today's jury view will help show the terror that Reagan Tokes endured on the night that she disappeared outside her job in the Short North.
Jurors were also shown the locations of 2 ATM machines where investigators say Brian Golsby forced Tokes to try to withdraw money. They stopped at the alley in Marion Village where prosecutors believe Reagan Tokes was raped, and Scioto Grove Metro Park where Tokes' body was found. A makeshift memorial was covered with a tarp during the jury's visit to the site.
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth and nothing but the truth.
Back in the courtroom, prosecutors called the witnesses who were first on the scene when the body was discovered. Also taking the stand were several of Reagan Tokes' roommates who described filing a missing persons report after realizing Reagan had not come home. And an undercover Grove City detective described finding the cigarette butt and burn marks inside Reagan Tokes' car. Prosecutors say DNA from the cigarette butt matches Brian Golsby. The detective also described the initial interview with Brian Golsby after his arrest.
First couple hours he told us that he had taken Reagan into a car, had committed a robbery of her, he needed money, he took her to some ATMs, and then he said he left her naked in a field during a snowstorm.
His defense team found themselves in an extremely difficult position, considering the amount of evidence against him. The case against Brian was incredibly strong. So their main strategy was to try to convince the jury not to sentence him to death. He had already confessed, so the trial wasn't really about proving his innocence. It was more about trying to save his life. The defense pointed to his troubled childhood, saying that his mother had been abusive and that he struggled with addiction. They also claimed that he himself had been a victim of sexual abuse as a child, although prosecutors said his accounts of that were inconsistent. His attorney also argued that the DNA found in Reagan's body, and on the cigarette butts, was unreliable, because it had been linked to Brian's DNA profile from a case back in 2010. She also said that Brian wasn't intelligent enough to consciously plan a crime as horrific as this one. I just want to point something out. If Mr. Golsby really didn't want to get caught, then, maybe wearing a GPS ankle monitor wasn't the best idea. And not only that, he even kept it charged. He made sure the battery didn't die, but prosecutors said that his level of intelligence didn't matter and didn't change anything. They told the jury that night he went out hunting, and the person he found was Reagan Tokes. There's no mystery here, the prosecutors said.
We can track him at 9:45 p.m. at the precise place where she parked her car, and at gunpoint was forced into the car by him. And this device tracks not only location but speed, and within a couple minutes after 9:45, he's gone from walking about 3 miles an hour to moving at 25 miles an hour on 2nd Avenue after he kidnapped her and told her to drive to the bank where there was this attempt to withdraw, which was denied, $200, because there are limits on withdrawals at ATMs, as we all know. Eventually, $60 was withdrawn by Reagan Tokes, and it had a surveillance video of her at the drive-thru. You can see a shadow figure in the car with her. You can't identify who it is, but guess what again? At 10:32 p.m., that's exactly where Brian Lee Golsby is, while she's withdrawing $60 from the bank. Later on, there was an effort to withdraw money from that location and a Huntington bank a short distance from there. Again, when those attempts were made, which were declined, Brian Lee Golsby's at those locations. The state, as the defense, has this opportunity to tell you what we're going to prove. We expect to prove each and every one of those counts in the indictment and the specifications. and expect to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt. And expect also, in closing argument, to submit to you, we have proven it beyond that standard.
Verdict. We, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled and sworn, find the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt as to count 1 of the indictment for aggravated murder.
On the day that should have been Reagan's 23rd birthday, Brian was found guilty on all 9 counts against him. But the jury couldn't reach a unanimous decision about the punishment. 4 jurors voted for life in prison, and 8 voted for the death penalty. At that point, Brian turned toward the Tokes family and said,
"Today I would like to apologize to the Tokes family for the crimes I committed against his daughter, friends, and family. When I first got locked up, I lied on everything. Said it was TJ. There is no TJ. TJ's not real. I made TJ up. So I was trying to wiggle my way out of the crime. And I committed. But the only other thing I have to say is, please have mercy on me." That's all I'd like to say.
All right, you can have a seat. Thank you.
Brian received 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Later, he was also given an additional 66 years in prison for the assaults and armed robberies he had committed just days before Reagan's murder. He was sent to serve his sentence at the Ohio State Penitentiary, a maximum security prison. His legal team filed several appeals, but they were eventually withdrawn and dismissed. Franklin County Prosecutor Ron O'Brien was disappointed with the outcome. In his view, the death penalty should have been the only possible sentence. He continued to push for that decision. In 2018, he submitted a 53-page motion asking the court to allow a cross-appeal. The argument was based on the instructions the judge had given to the jury. According to those instructions, jurors were allowed to consider mitigating circumstances presented by the defense, even though, prosecutors argued, no real mitigating circumstances actually existed.
Once the jury incorrectly hears that, then I think that that the state has proven that we have been impaired, and we have proven that there was prejudice to fair consideration in that penalty phase.
During the interrogations, Brian told several different versions of what happened that night. His stories often contradicted each other, and prosecutors were able to disprove many of them easily. Still, those statements were allowed to be considered during the legal proceedings. Eventually, in April of 2019, the 10th District Court of Appeals in Ohio granted the state permission to file an appeal. However, the court ruled that the instructions the judge had given to the jury were correct and lawful. The prosecutor filed another appeal, but to his frustration, the Ohio Supreme Court ultimately rejected it completely. Ron O'Brien tried to remain optimistic and said, "The good news is, he's going to die in prison." After the failures and gaps in the system became clear, Reagan's family promised they would fight to change it. They said, "The system has serious flaws, and changes must happen, and they will happen because of this senseless tragedy. If we have to, we will spend the rest of our lives working to make sure it happens." And they truly did. In 2018, the family reached a legal settlement with the company that had been providing housing for Brian and was responsible for supervising him. In 2019, the Reagan Tokes law officially went into effect, and the Ohio Supreme Court later confirmed that the law was constitutional. In the years that followed, it became clear that poor supervision, the lack of proper checks, and the failure to return Brian to prison when violations occurred all pointed to the need for serious reforms in both legislation and the correctional system. The Reagan Tokes Act allows courts to impose indefinite prison sentences with a minimum and maximum term for first and second degree felonies when life imprisonment is not required. While Brian has been in prison, he has violated prison rules 52 times, which resulted in him being transferred between 5 different correctional facilities. But under Ohio law, those violations did not affect his sentence in any way. And what makes it even more disturbing is that at one point he had actually been released from prison 6 months early. Under the new changes, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction can now extend an inmate's incarceration up to the maximum sentence ordered by the court if the person commits new crimes or repeatedly violates prison rules. The law is also expected to improve how released offenders are monitored, including the use of electronic ankle monitors. Thanks to the fundraiser organized by Jake and many generous donations, the Reagan Tokes Memorial Foundation Scholarship was created. Every year, the program provides 2 Ohio State students with financial support covering both tuition and housing. And in Reagan's memory, self-defense classes have also begun to be organized throughout the region.
The workout is a series of fighting skills and self-defense moves, 1 minute on a fighting skill, 1 minute on an explosive strength movement.
A special place was also created in her honor at Scioto Grove Metro Park. A memorial space for 21-year-old Reagan was built there, called Tranquility Garden.
I used to have this crushing sensation where I almost couldn't breathe when we would pull in, and I don't feel that any longer. Obviously, for us, you know, the pain and the tragedy never goes away, and we carry that with us every day, but we need to keep moving forward, and there is still a amazing, beautiful world out there, and we have to learn how to move forward, and we carry her with us in our hearts every day, and that will never change.
Her family hoped the space would become a place of peace, not a reminder of the terrible things that happened that morning. In the garden, there's a water feature that represents her astrological sign. Her favorite color, blue, can be seen all around the space. There's also plenty of wildlife and greenery there, the kind of nature Reagan loved so much. 5 buckeye trees were planted as well, a symbol of her time as a student at Ohio State, a place that was simply her favorite in the world. Her former boyfriend, Jake, rarely spoke publicly after Reagan's death, but one time he shared a story about their first date, and honestly, it captures her personality perfectly. We went apple picking, and she spotted the most perfect apple at the very top of a tree. She just had to get it. The problem was, neither of us could reach it. Then I had this brilliant idea. I told her to climb up on my shoulders. But before I even realized why she wanted that apple so badly, she shoved it into my mouth and made me take this huge bite. I didn't understand why she did that until later, when she told me she had been trying to find the biggest, reddest apple she could, just so I could enjoy it. That's who she was. She always thought about other people before herself. And when I say always, I really mean always. From the moment I first met her to the last time we spoke, she always made me a better person. I'll always love her. She was my best friend, and she always will be. The last few hours of Reagan's life must have been unimaginably terrifying. It's hard to even picture those final moments. Her tearful pleas to be allowed to live, standing alone in a cold, dark field. Everyone who knew Reagan Tokes spoke about her the same way, only with kindness and admiration. She was deeply compassionate, a genuinely kind person who always seemed to see the best in people and in the world around her. Someone whose potential to achieve so much and to help others along the way felt almost limitless. Her mother, Lisa, later said,
"In the end, love always wins."
Easter Sunday. Around 2 in the afternoon, the school grounds are almost empty. One of the witnesses hears something strange, like something being dragged across the ground. Then silence. Just a few hours earlier, 26-year-old teacher Stephanie Scott walked into Leeton High School to drop off materials for her students. Her wedding was less than a week away. At 1:31 p.m., she turned off the classroom alarm. At 1:38, she turned it back on. That was the last confirmed moment she was alive. After that, she vanished. Her phone off, bank accounts, no activity, her car gone. About a day later, her fiancé calls the police. While volunteers are out searching the area, another detail starts to surface. A school janitor. 24-year-old Vincent Stanford. He says he didn't see anything, but a witness remembers his strange laugh and the scratches on his face. Police start checking his story. Turns out he lied about going to the store. They bring him in for questioning again. Then they search his house. Inside, they find keys that belong to Stephanie. In the trunk of his car, slabs with a substance that looks like blood. And on a camera lying next to the driver's seat, there are photos. The very first images, a burned female body in the woods. And that's when it becomes clear what really happened on the school grounds that day. Alright guys, let me grab you for just a quick second. I'm really curious where you're all watching from, so I want to ask you, what city are you in, and what time is it for you right now? Thanks for sticking with me, drop it in the comments, and I'll keep going. Leeton, New South Wales, Australia. It's a small, rural town, population right around 10,000 people. Back in 2015, this is where 26-year-old Stephanie Scott lived with her fiancé, Aaron. They'd actually known each other since they were kids, growing up in the same town and playing sports together. For years, they were just close friends, until Aaron's 21st birthday. That night, everything changed, and their relationship turned into something romantic. Stephanie, or Butternose, as her family lovingly called her, was known as this warm, intelligent girl with a big, genuine smile. When it came to her career, she followed in the footsteps of her father, Robert, who was a teacher. So yeah, she became one too, teaching English and drama at Leeton High School. She poured so much time and energy into her students, like really gave it her all, and she took a lot of pride in her lessons. Her colleagues respected her a lot. April 11th, 2015. That was supposed to be her wedding day with Aaron. And Stephanie, being kind of a perfectionist, had spent months planning every single detail, telling everyone it was all going to be perfect. She'd already had her bachelorette party, their honeymoon to Tahiti was booked, and the only thing left was practicing their first dance, which, yeah, they'd been taking a bunch of lessons for. The first weekend of April meant the big day was just days away. Aaron suggested they go out of town for a party, but Stephanie said no, she still had a few things she needed to take care of. One of those things was putting together the final plan for her students while she'd be away on her honeymoon. April 5th, 2015, Easter Sunday. Around 11 in the morning, Stephanie drove to the school to drop off materials for the substitute teacher. She parked outside, then went to meet a colleague who lived nearby. Together, they opened the gate. Stephanie locked it behind her, kept the keys, and headed toward the English staff room. While she was there, she sent an email to a bus company, confirming transportation for the wedding guests. After that, she kept working for a few more hours. Finally, feeling like everything was organized, she put the keys to the administrative block into her bag and headed toward the gate. Aaron knew she'd be gone for a few hours, but as the sun started to go down and there was still no word from her, something just didn't feel right. The night before, and earlier that morning, they had been texting, and she was replying quickly. But by the middle of the day, she just stopped responding. Around 7:20 in the evening, Aaron got home. Stephanie wasn't there, and her car wasn't outside either. He tried to stay calm, telling himself maybe the stress of the wedding and saying goodbye to her students just made her want a little time alone. But this kind of complete silence, that wasn't like her at all. And yeah, planning a wedding is stressful, but from everything people saw, Stephanie was genuinely enjoying it. Just the day before, she'd been talking to her students about her dress and the wedding menu. This wasn't someone who seemed overwhelmed or anxious. This was someone who was excited, counting down the days to her big moment. Aaron barely slept that night. He woke up early, texted her again, then started calling her family. By 4:30 that day, it had been over 24 hours since anyone had last heard from Stephanie. Aaron went to the police station in Leeton to report his fiancée missing. At first, police thought that since her car was also gone, she might have left the school grounds and gotten into an accident, maybe driven into a ditch or a creek and gotten stuck there. Helicopters were brought in to search the area from above, while officers on the ground went straight to her last known location, Leeton High School. Since it was Easter Sunday, there weren't many people around, which limited witnesses, but also, in a way, ruled out hundreds of potential suspects, making the investigation a bit more focused. When they checked the classroom alarm, it showed that Stephanie had turned it off at 1:31 p.m. and turned it back on at 1:38, so they knew for sure she was there at that time. After that, nothing. No solid leads. Police tried using Find My iPhone, but her phone was off. There had also been no activity on her bank accounts or social media since Saturday, April 4th. By April 7th, the search had spread across social media. One post alone was shared over 1,500 times in just a few hours. Local news picked up the story, and hundreds of people in the small community joined the search. But considering how completely out of character this was for Stephanie, and the fact that her wedding was less than a week away, the hope started fading fast. Her mother, Marilyn, said,
I think if we don't find her today, we just can't let ourselves go there, she said on air, her voice shaking a little. But please, don't jump to conclusions.
Reporter Erin Willing is at Leeton High School tonight. Erin, why did police return to the school today?
Pete, police did not only return here for much of the day, they are still in fact here at the school. Now they're using digital mapping technology to mark out the grounds of the school as well as the room where Stephanie would have been working the day that she vanished.
One of the witnesses, who was near Leeton High School on Easter Sunday, said that around 2 in the afternoon he heard these strange noises, like something was being moved or dragged across the ground. He also remembered seeing Stephanie's car parked under a covered walkway, but at the time, he didn't think much of it. Later, though, the car was gone. Another witness, someone who worked at the school, told detectives about a really odd conversation with one of the janitors on Monday morning. By then, the whole place was already buzzing with rumors, speculation, and just this heavy sense of anxiety. The witness asked the janitor if he had seen Stephanie before she disappeared. He said no, but when he was asked if he thought Stephanie might have run off because of pre-wedding nerves, he let out this strange, totally out-of-place laugh. It left the witness feeling really uneasy, and there was something else his face had scratches on it. That janitor turned out to be 24-year-old Vincent Stanford, and yeah, detectives decided they needed to take a closer look at him. They spoke with Vincent briefly. He said he had gone to the school to take out the trash, even though he wasn't scheduled to work that day. According to him, he wasn't there for long, because he had to go grocery shopping. He claimed he hadn't seen Stephanie, and that he couldn't really help the investigation. And, good luck with the search, he added. His car was caught on security cameras, leaving the school a little after 3:30 p.m., which, on the surface, matched the timeline he gave. But when officers checked the store he claimed he had gone to, it turned out it was closed that day. Now, Vincent didn't really have any obvious reason to lie about something like that, and that's exactly what raised red flags. At that point, he officially became a person of interest. Police decided to bring him in again, this time for a much more detailed interview. He was living at his mother's house. When officers arrived, she let them inside. Vincent wasn't home at the time, but his mother allowed police to look around. And that's where they found it. A set of keys, along with a red and white lanyard, matching the description of Stephanie Scott's keys. While officers were bagging the evidence, Vincent pulled up to the house in his car. The vehicle was immediately seized. During the search, they found MDF boards in the trunk, with a substance that looked like blood. Out in front of the house, officers also noticed tire tracks that didn't match his car. And on the ground, there was a used condom. The wrapper for it was later found inside Vincent's bedroom. When they asked him where he had been that day, he said he'd gone out taking photos, pointing to a camera sitting on the front passenger seat. Detectives asked if they could check it, and he just kind of shrugged, like, yeah, sure. What they saw was shocking. The very first images on that camera showed a burned female body lying in a wooded area. Vincent claimed those were just shots from a movie, said he took them because he thought they were funny, but at that point, police already knew exactly what they were looking at. It was Stephanie Scott. Vincent Stanford was arrested in connection with her disappearance, and now her suspected murder.
Police last night arrested her co-worker, 24-year-old Vincent Stanford, a high school cleaner.
I reckon I was just horrified when I heard the news, couldn't quite comprehend it for a while.
Police found Ms Scott's car dumped in a paddock about 8.5 kilometres from where she was last seen, but they're yet to find her body.
It's tragic for the family, it's tragic for the people of Luton, it's tragic for the people of New South Wales and society in general.
She'd understand everything. If you had problems at home, had problems anywhere, you could just speak to her about it. She was amazing. Just want to thank her heaps for everything she's done for us, and we're still praying for her.
She was just such a lovely, vibrant person that fitted in with everyone and everything. And she was well loved by the teachers, the students, and everyone that virtually met her.
Family and friends who'd travelled from overseas for a wedding now face the devastating task of arranging a funeral.
Vincent's phone and laptop were absolutely packed with images of underage girls, both from Leeton High School and pulled from the internet in all kinds of sexual and shockingly explicit situations, including zoophilia. And on top of that, there were photos of women he had apparently been stalking around town, completely without their knowledge. The picture forming in front of investigators was seriously dark-like. A deeply sinister pattern of behaviour was becoming crystal clear. Even though the body still hadn't been found, on April 9th, Vincent Stanford was officially charged with the murder of Stephanie. Police kept working to pinpoint the exact location where those photos of the body had actually been taken. Then, on April 10th, 2015, 5 days after Stephanie was last seen, another witness came forward. He told police that he had spotted a car near the canal shortly before 4 p.m. on Easter Sunday. According to him, a man got out of the vehicle and tossed something into the water, something that looked like a laptop, and then took off fast. It didn't take police long at all to pull that laptop out of the water, and it was confirmed to belong to Stephanie.
Police divers have joined the search for the body of murdered bride-to-be Stephanie Scott in the New South Wales Riverina. Nine's Natalia Cooper is in Leeton this morning in a touching scene behind you there, Natalia. And what's the latest on the investigation?
The search has resumed for the body of 26-year-old school teacher Stephanie Scott. Police are searching fields and a vineyard near where the young teacher's red Mazda was found earlier this week. Police divers are also searching a canal in that area, and it's believed they have retrieved a laptop from the canal. Now, you mentioned the shrine that is growing behind me. It's been visited by so many people throughout the morning, and so many emotions have been seen here. People are absolutely devastated, whether they knew her personally or they didn't know her at all. This tragedy has really affected everyone in this town. We know that her family and her fiance were here last night. They lit candles, they read some of the tributes, and they were clearly distraught and comforting each other. One more piece of information I have for you is that police are desperate to find anyone who saw this white ute believed to belong to Vincent Stanford, the man who is accused of murdering Stephanie Scott. They need to contact police urgently. Brett?
Natalia Cooper in Leeton, thank you.
After that, the search for Stephanie came to a tragic end. About 60 miles from Leeton High School, and just one day before her wedding was supposed to happen, Stephanie Scott's burned body was found. She was lying in a wooded area in Cockapara National Park. She had suffered around 40 blows to the head, and the cause of death was blunt force trauma. She had also been stabbed in the neck, and after that, her body was dumped and set on fire. That confirmed it. The photos on Vincent's camera were, in fact, images of Stephanie. Not long after, Vincent himself reached out to the police and asked to speak with them. At that point, sitting in his cell, he didn't yet know that Stephanie's body had already been found. He sat down and told them everything, including exactly where they could find her.
Where was she when you first saw her?
She was in the staff room upstairs for the English drama math teacher.
Okay. What was she doing?
She was working on a computer.
Was the staff room door open, closed, or
open?
Where were you at that time then?
I was working. I had our pressure cleaner out to clean the garbage bins and put some of the garbage bins upstairs. That's when I saw her.
In the class, in the staff room?
Yes.
Did you say anything to her at that time?
No.
Did she say anything to you?
No.
Did she see you?
I think so.
You mean you think so?
I walked by the door, so she probably knew I was there.
He said that the moment he saw her, he had this sudden urge to kill her. He drove home right away to grab what he himself... It included handcuffs, Viagra, a knife, and cleaning supplies. And on the way, he was searching things on Google. He was also making searches related to necrophilia. He went back to the school right when Stephanie was getting ready to leave. As she walked past him, she made eye contact, smiled, and said,
"Have a nice Easter," she said with a smile.
And in that moment, Vincent suddenly grabbed her and dragged her back into a storage room.
We spoke to you on Wednesday on the 8th. Yes. And we spoke to you about some scratches that I can still see on your face. Yes. Can you tell me where you got those scratches from? Several of them are from Stephanie Scott. And how did she do that? With her fingernails. And when did she do that? When I tried to kill her. When I killed her. When you killed her? Yes. Okay, so you say that you've... Can you just tell me exactly what happened when she walked... When you first... You said you were waiting for her to come out, were you? You were waiting for her to finish her work? Yes. Okay. What exactly happened then? When she finished her work, what did you do? I picked her up from behind with my right hand over her mouth and my left hand around her middle. I dragged her into the store. I closed the door behind us, chucked her on the floor, and I beat her to death. You say with your fists? Yes. Did you use any other weapon? I did use a knife as well.
You say you got a feeling that you had to do it. What feeling? Can you describe that to me upon seeing her? What feeling came over you? Like, what did you feel?
It's that I had to kill her. I've had a lot of violent thoughts, but I've never acted on them. Okay. So when you say you had a lot of violent thoughts, can you describe to me what those thoughts have been? Killing various people I've met. Yep. Hurting them. That's about it, really. And is there any reason why you wanted to kill these people or hurt these people? No, I think I might have some mental problems, but I've never done anything to me to deserve it. Are you able to tell me why you got angry at Stephanie and why you wanted to kill her? I didn't really feel anger, I just wanted to kill her. Oh, so you didn't feel anger? No. You just wanted to kill her? Okay. So you just wanted to kill her? Yes. Can you tell me why you wanted to kill her? No. I think it was just my mental health acting up again.
Then Vincent said he got hungry and just went home to eat, made himself a sandwich and some coffee, leaving Stephanie lying on the floor in that storage room. After he ate, he went back to the school, put her body into the trunk of her own car, and then went inside again to clean up any evidence. After that, he drove her Mazda to his house and left it parked outside while he was talking with his mom and brother, like nothing had happened. In the early hours of Easter Monday, Vincent got back into Stephanie's car and drove out to Kokopara National Park.
So when you've taken her out of the boot, did you take the clothes off her in the boot, or did you take clothes off her in the ground?
On the ground.
On the ground?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, obviously, she had, at this stage, there was a lot of blood, and did she have injuries to her face? Did you notice any swelling or...?
Yeah, the right side of her face.
Yep. It's quite...
Up near her eye.
Yep. And that's from when you punched her when she was on the ground? Okay. Then did you use match to light the fire, or did you use cigarettes?
Put some petrol on a stick, and I lit a match on that.
Yep.
And I chucked the stick on there.
Yep. And where did the match... What about the match? Where did you put it?
I think it's still there, probably.
Did you throw that in the fire or just drop it?
No, I dropped it where the stick was.
Okay. Is that far away from the body or...?
No.
No? No. So when you travelled, did you stay around long to watch your body burn? Or?
No, I left straight away.
You left straight away?
Yeah, it was well light. It took a second. Petrol starts fast, so...
Yeah. Okay.
On your camera... You had 2 photos of the deceased body? Yes. Are those photographs of Stephanie? Yes. Can you tell me why you took those photographs of Stephanie? No.
Why did you keep the bra? Like, you've disposed of everything else, why the bra?
I honestly don't know.
Don't know?
Maybe I wanted a souvenir.
Yep.
Yeah.
Something to remember it by.
Probably, but I had no real reason to keep it.
Why the bra though? Why not any other item?
I think it was clean.
Did you wash the bra?
I chucked it in the washing once, yeah.
At home or at school?
At home.
At home. Okay. What about her earrings, engagement ring?
Don't know, I might have taken that off earlier.
Earlier? Where did you take those off?
Probably when I was at home. No. When I went and collected all her stuff at the high school. Would have been. Not her earrings though.
But her engagement ring, you remember taking that?
Yeah.
Where did
high school.
Where'd you put her engagement ring?
Don't know. Chucked so much stuff out.
Yep. So you got rid of that with her clothes, did you, or?
I would have chucked it in a bin somewhere when I chucked everything else out.
But then it came out that he had taken her engagement ring and her class ring and sent them along with Stephanie's driver's license to his twin brother, Marcus, who was living in Adelaide. Marcus ended up selling the jewellery at a pawn shop and destroyed her ID.
So, did you sexually assault Stephanie? No. While she was alive? No. Or deceased? No.
Vincent was also hit with additional charges including aggravated sexual assault and causing actual bodily harm, although investigators already understood that part wasn't true. Vincent Stanford was born in Australia, but his family moved to the Netherlands when he was just 3 years old, and later returned to New South Wales. He told police that he had dreamed of killing someone since he was 7, and that at 12 he had strangled his teacher. Classmates used to call him a psycho because of his aggressive outbursts. He was eventually sent to what's known as a school for children with behavioural disorders due to inappropriate behaviour, poor social skills, no real friends, and a tendency toward criminal actions. He said he never managed to fit into society, and added, "I'd have to learn how to feel emotions, because I barely have any." Later on, he was hospitalised in a youth psychiatric facility, where he was diagnosed with autism and oppositional defiant disorder. After being released, Vincent told police he had wanted to go to university or join the army, but was rejected both times. After that, he bounced between different jobs until he eventually got hired as a janitor at Leeton High School. It started as a 5-week contract, but it was later extended. While working there, he would often hang around near the girls' restrooms during lunch breaks, which, already raised concerns. When detectives dug deeper into his phone, they discovered that even before Stephanie's murder, he had been stalking a 12-year-old girl at the school, along with 2 women who worked at nearby stores. There were nearly 2,000 photos of that 12-year-old girl on his phone, along with diary-style notes about her. He had followed her home multiple times, documenting when she left the house and who else was inside. One of his entries read, "She's home alone. 3:40 p.m. Plenty of time to abduct her." It's believed that his original target was actually that young girl, and only when that plan didn't work out, he went to the school, where his attention shifted to Stephanie. Forensic testing from his car confirmed the stains on the MDF boards contained Stephanie's DNA. Inside the Stanford home, her blood was also found on a knife, on the interior lining of her own car, on condom packaging, and even her bra was recovered. As Vincent kept giving more and more disturbing statements during interrogation, the entire town of Leeton seemed to just pause. Local businesses shut down, and classes at Leeton High School were cancelled, so the community could come together for a public memorial to honour Stephanie's life.
As a community, we feel quite helpless. There's not much we can do to make this any better for the families involved and the friends that are involved. It was lovely to be able to be part of such an amazing tribute.
After joining in a moment's silence to honour Stephanie, residents released balloons, filling the sky with yellow.
The release of the balloons was like letting her spirit now roam free in the sky.
We pray for the eternal rest of Stephanie Scott and for the comfort and healing of her family.
Everyone was dressed in yellow, her favourite colour. A colour that once stood for light, warmth, and life. now filled the space with this heavy, bittersweet sense of memory. All those shades of yellow blended together into one quiet wave, almost like they were saying without words who she was, bright, kind, full of life. The air felt still, broken only by soft sighs and the faint sound of footsteps. Keith Urban's song Making Memories of Us was playing, the same song that was supposed to be her and Aaron's first wedding dance. But instead of joy and anticipation, it sounded like goodbye. Slow, painful, filled with dreams that would never come true. Every note hit differently, like you could feel it in your chest as people stood there realizing this moment was never supposed to happen like this. They were saying goodbye, but it felt like more than that, like trying to hold on to something that was already gone. Around 1,000 people showed up, standing side by side, united in grief. Many of them completely silent, like there just weren't any words. This wasn't just a ceremony, it was shared pain, something too heavy to even say out loud. Later, in the beautiful place where her wedding was supposed to take place, Stephanie's funeral was held. A place meant for laughter, happiness, new beginnings, became a place of final goodbyes. And that contrast what should have been versus what actually happened, it hit hard. Like the place itself was holding on to the echo of a future that never got to exist. And then, as if it wasn't enough, the family was hit with another shock. Before the pain even had a chance to settle, police announced a second arrest in Stephanie's case. It came out of nowhere, honestly, and it added another layer to an already tijole story. Vincent's twin brother, Marcus Stanford. His name became the next piece of this case, one that only made everything feel even more shocking, like just how deep this tragedy really went.
In handcuffs, wearing a Star Wars jumper, Marcus Stanford is led into court. New South Wales detectives waiting for him, with plane tickets at the ready. The 24-year-old was arrested about 7 o'clock this morning at his Forreston home in the Adelaide Hills. Neighbours stunned that the latest chapter in a murder case which shocked the nation played out on their doorstep.
It's quite disturbing and quite shocking for our little street, our little community, and it's sad that the case is, I guess, continuing on for the family as well.
Marcus Stanford can't be shown because he is Vincent's identical twin. His colleagues at an Adelaide Hills flower farm say he has little to do with them outside work.
Was I shocked? Not really.
Marcus Stanford didn't have a lawyer. When the magistrate asked if there was any reason he shouldn't be taken to Leeton, he told the court, in his thick Dutch accent, that he'd never been there, so he wouldn't need to go back. But he'll be on a flight to Sydney, in custody, tomorrow morning.
Even after Vincent's confession, at the early stage, it still wasn't clear how the trial would actually unfold. His position was unstable, he didn't immediately plead guilty, and that created this sense of uncertainty, both in the courtroom and among everyone following the case. Every hearing came with this napraženie očekávania, like, would the full truth finally come out, and how far would they have to go to get there? But over time, things started to become clearer. Based on all the evidence gathered and presented by the prosecution and police, a strong and consistent case began to take shape. This wasn't just random pieces, it was a chain of facts that fit together into one clear sequence of events. Little by little, that removed doubts about the charges and gave the case a much more defined direction. In the end, the court ruled that there was enough evidence for the case to go before a jury. That decision became a major turning point, basically confirming that the materials were strong enough for a full trial. And after that, the case was officially sent to court, where it would finally receive its legal outcome. Experts carried out a series of psychological evaluations, and the results were both disturbing and, in a way, revealing. According to their conclusions, he was essentially a serial killer in the making, someone with a dangerous pattern of thinking that was already forming and could have led to even more horrific outcomes in the future. Specialists pointed out a complete lack of emotional response. He had no empathy, no internal limits that would normally stop a person before crossing into cruelty. He didn't feel remorse. During conversations and when describing what happened, he stayed cold and detached. Witnesses said he could even smile, or laugh, while talking about it, and then just shrug, like it was something ordinary, something that didn't even deserve an emotional reaction. And honestly, that indifference made it even more disturbing because of how sharply it contrasted with the scale of the tragedy. Thankfully for Stephanie's family, they didn't have to go through a full, drawn-out trial with every detail laid out in open court. His guilty plea made it possible to avoid long hearings, reliving painful details, and that exhausting wait for a verdict. It didn't take away their pain, but it spared them from having to go through the worst parts of this story over and over again in a courtroom.
Breaking news this morning, a school cleaner has pleaded guilty to the rape and murder of teacher Stephanie Scott in regional New South Wales. 25-year-old Vincent Stanford has appeared in the Supreme Court in Sydney this morning over the 2015 killing.
In July 2016, Vincent Stanford officially pleaded guilty to the rape and murder of Stephanie. That moment became one of the heaviest in the entire legal process. It was a formal admission, one that confirmed everyone's worst fears and removed any remaining doubt about what had happened. For her family, it meant facing the brutal truth with no excuses, no softening, nothing to hide behind. While the court was deciding his sentence, the case took another unsettling turn. His twin brother, Marcus Stanford, was also charged. During the proceedings, it came out that he admitted his involvement. He had sold Stephanie's rings, tried to destroy evidence, and helped Vincent cover up the crime. And, yeah, that part hit differently. Because this wasn't some stranger, this was his own brother, someone who knowingly became part of hiding the truth. Marcus was sentenced to 15 months in prison. For a lot of people, that felt way too lenient, considering everything that had happened. In the courtroom, there wasn't really any sense of relief, just this heavy feeling that the scale of the tragedy was far greater than the punishment that had been given.
However, I have determined that there is no practical purpose in allowing for a parole period at all in the sentence I will impose. Would you stand up, please, Mr. Stanford? For the offence of being an accessory after the fact to the murder of Stephanie Scott, you are convicted. You are sentenced to imprisonment for a fixed term of 1 year and 3 months. The sentence is to date from the 10th of June 2015 and will expire on the 9th of September 2016. Without your plea of guilty, it would have been a sentence of 1 year and 8 months.
He was later released in October 2016, a decision that, for many people, felt like a cold shock after everything that had happened. For the family and the local community, it didn't feel like closure. It felt like a painful reminder that even the most serious crimes don't always get the punishment people expect. The reaction was immediate. Nearly 60,000 people signed a petition demanding the sentence be appealed, calling it pathetic. Behind every signature, there was anger, frustration, and this deep sense of injustice that spread far beyond just one community. It became a collective voice, pushing back against a decision that, to many, felt way too lenient, almost disconnected from the reality of what had happened. Even so, Marcus was released from prison and, for a short time, returned to Leeton with his mother. And, yeah, people noticed. The town hadn't forgotten. He was met with cold silence, no acceptance, no welcome. The atmosphere was tense, almost hostile. You could feel it in the way people looked at him, and in what they didn't say. As of now, it's unknown where he is. After locals made it clear he wasn't welcome there, he basically disappeared from public view. And that uncertainty, it just leaves this lingering feeling that a story which already left such a deep scar still doesn't have a true ending.
I just want to say sorry for what I've done, and for the hurt I caused the family. And, it's over for now. I hope I won't cause any more trouble. I did a really stupid thing, and unfortunately I can't take it back.
I don't want anything to do with him. I have no contact with him, and I don't want any, their father Steve said, adding that he was shocked and completely baffled by Vincent's crimes. I don't want to call him. I don't want to talk to him. I don't want anything to do with him. I don't know why he did it. I've never asked why, and honestly, I don't want to know. The day before Stephanie would have turned 28, a date that, for her family, will always stand as a reminder of what will never happen. The court delivered its final verdict. A day that should have been filled with warm words, memories, maybe quiet celebrations, instead became another painful reminder of loss. Vincent Stanford was sentenced to life in prison for her murder, a ruling that, legally, closed the case but didn't bring real relief to the people who lost her. He was also given a separate 15-year sentence for aggravated sexual assault, another confirmation of just how serious, how devastating this crime truly was. Inside the courtroom, there was no sense of victory, just silence, restrained emotions, and the understanding that no sentence could ever bring Stephanie back. It was justice, on paper, but it wasn't the end of the pain.
I am satisfied that this is a case of murder that clearly falls within the worst category. Mr. Stanford, would you stand up, please? For the aggravated sexual assault and the murder of Stephanie Claire Scott, you are convicted. Both of the sentence I impose will take effect from the 8th of April 2015. For the aggravated sexual assault, you are sentenced to imprisonment for 15 years. I decline to nominate a proportion of that sentence as a non-parole period, as there is no utility in doing so. For the murder of Stephanie Scott, you are sentenced to imprisonment for life.
The courtroom was completely still, tense, almost suffocating, when Stephanie's mother, Marilyn, stood up to speak. Her voice was calm, controlled, but underneath it, you could feel this deep, indescribable pain, the kind that builds up over years of loss. She didn't raise her voice, not even once, but every word landed hard. She said that Vincent was too insignificant, too incapable of building a life of his own, someone who couldn't find his place, couldn't create anything meaningful. And instead, as she put it, he chose to take something that wasn't his, a life that never belonged to him, and one he had absolutely no right to take. There wasn't just obvinenia in her words, there was this heavy realization of injustice. A person who created nothing, destroyed something that meant everything to others. And that, Marilyn said, was the most painful part, not just the crime itself, but its senseless, cruel, and irreversible nature.
We need to be able to fade from public view, to mourn our beautiful girl, and work our way through our grief. We will not be answering any questions, participating in any interviews, or any programs in the future. Tomorrow we begin to celebrate Stephanie's too short, amazing life. This should be her 28th birthday, the second one we celebrate without her. We will be having a cup of tea and a mint slice biscuit at 3, so please join us. Thank you.
Stephanie's family publicly called for much stricter background checks and more thorough screening of people working in schools. They argued that the system meant to protect both students and teachers had clearly failed, and that failure couldn't just be ignored anymore. They also reached a private settlement with the New South Wales Department of Education, and the details weren't made public, but it became another step in their fight for accountability and change. Their lawyer explained that the goal wasn't just to finish the legal process, but to make sure something like this would never happen again. It was about creating clearer, stricter procedures for screening employees in public institutions, especially schools, where even one mistake can lead to irreversible consequences. And honestly, this case became a painful reminder that it's not enough to just have rules. They actually have to be followed, every single time. But the hardship for the Scott family didn't end there. A little over a year after losing Stephanie, they were hit with another tragedy. Her father, Robert, died in an accident, and the circumstances were almost unbelievably cruel. A tree fell on him. It was another devastating blow to a family that was still trying to recover from their loss. He was buried in the same place as his daughter, side by side. Like even in death, they couldn't be separated. That place became a symbol of double loss, of pain that's hard to even put into words, and the silence left behind after 2 lives were taken. After Stephanie's death, Aaron made the decision to leave everything behind. He moved to Europe, trying to escape the memories that followed him in New South Wales, the places that no longer felt warm, only painful reminders of what had happened. It was his way of starting over, even if you can't really erase that kind of pain. 5 years passed, and slowly, carefully, he allowed himself to feel something beyond grief again. Aaron found love again, and got engaged to Samantha, a step that didn't mean forgetting, but showed that, somehow, he was learning to live forward. People in the community say they'll never forget what happened. This tragedy left a deep mark, turning into a story that gets passed on as a warning, as a reminder, as something that doesn't fade with time. Books have even been written about the case, trying to capture every detail, every moment, every loss, so that the truth of what happened doesn't just disappear. Over time, you try not to think about it as much, about the horrible nature of what happened. People just can't believe something like this could happen here. It's, like, unheard of. The mayor emphasized that Stephanie's family wants her to be remembered not for the tragedy that ended her life, but for who she was every single day, for her genuine kindness, her deep love for teaching, and her constant desire to help others, even in the smallest ways. For them, it's really important that her name isn't tied only to that horrific event, but remains a symbol of light, care, and warmth, the kind she gave to everyone around her. Stephanie represented the very best in people. She was the kind of person who made you feel calmer just by being random. She didn't just say the right things, she actually lived by them. And everyone who knew her could feel that. She truly changed people's lives, often without even realizing it. She would have wanted us to keep living, to not get stuck in the pain, to not let this loss completely break us. We have to be kinder to ourselves, learn how to breathe again without fear, and somehow bring music and joy back into our lives, even if right now that feels almost impossible, because that's what she would have wanted for us.